My brothers and sisters in atheism, it is spectacular to see you all here today. Thank you for joining us. I'm excited to be here as always. Welcome back to Mega Bloodbath. Well, tonight we're going to be continuing our review of Alex O'Connor versus William Lane Craig. Does God exist, right? Last night in part one, we worked through Craig's opening case, Alex's early responses, such as the Kalam Cosmological Argument, whether the universe had a beginning, actual infinities, Hilbert's Hotel, and the debate over competing theories of time. We also had TJump, who's here again today, and several other panelists join us throughout the night to break down the arguments and challenge both sides. We also had a completely unexpected sidebar when a Christian presuppositionalist named Ascend Apologetics called in. We thought he was going to run tag, but he ended up presenting Plantinga's evolutionary argument against naturalism, so that was quite a bit of fun. I pulled that discussion out of part one, and I made a separate video. I'll be putting that up here tomorrow, probably. And tonight, we're going to be picking right up where we left off. We still have some of the discussion surrounding time and infinity to finish, and then we'll be getting into one of the biggest sections of this entire debate, the problem of suffering, including Alex O'Connor's challenge involving animal suffering, right? As always, this is a debate, review, and commentary stream. We'll be pausing the original discussion throughout the night to analyze arguments, reconstruct premises, question conclusions, and give our own commentary. The goal is not to blindly root for William Lane Craig or Alex O'Connor. I want to look at what each person is actually arguing and ask one simple question. Does the evidence and reasoning actually support the conclusion? Also, nobody on this panel speaks for everyone who shares their religious or philosophical position. A criticism of an argument is criticism of the argument, not an attack on Christians, atheists, agnostics, or anyone else. We're simply going after the arguments, right? The panel will be open throughout the night, but I want to keep us focused enough that we actually finish the debate this time. We've got about an hour left to go, so we'll try to get through. Let's get this going.
I want to,
even though neither of them exist.
Aware of time, and I want Alex to give the argument against God's existence as well. So maybe a reply on this in particular.
Okay. Well, I think the key word here is conceptually, Alex. Even if it is true that the set of events that will happen is actually infinite, the point is that the series of events, the concrete series of events in time, is not and never will be actually infinite. It is always finite and always increasing. And the reason for that is that from any event you number and start going forward, for any number n plus 1 is always a finite number. So if you were to try to instantiate that set of future events in reality, one member at a time, all you would do would be to generate a series that is potentially infinite, but you would never be able to instantiate all the members of that set.
The same as...
Okay, obviously Alex is going to address that here in a second, but before he addresses that, let's see how the panel addresses that. What are y'all's thoughts on his argument about no actual infinites?
I think it's mostly irrelevant whether you think actual infinites are possible or not. The question that Cosmic Skeptic is probably going to ask right now is, how does God solve that problem? And he's going to say, oh, well, that whatever solution William Lane Craig thinks works for God would also work in a naturalist hypothesis. I'm guessing based off of how Alex started, he's just going to say, oh, but the same problem applies to God or something. But the way you should phrase it is ask William, how does God solve this problem? Why wouldn't a natural necessary being also solve the problem?
Right. And I think a natural necessary being does solve the problem he's claiming.
Is he just claiming that there's like no infinity possible?
Yeah, he's claiming that there can't be an actual infinity, like an actual number of past infinite events, which means there can't be an actual like natural infinite past. It has to have had a beginning, and the beginning must be God, therefore.
Oh, well then that's just a claim that he can't even really prove.
Well, he's trying to show that if you believe in actual infinities, it leads to contradictions, which means that worldview is silly compared to his worldview, which is fine as an argument goes.
And then we've got Frosty in the back again. What's going on, Frosty?
Hi. So,
What's up, dude? Did you have a quick question?
I'm gonna watch this and try to communicate the best I can because I'm not too familiar with the infinity stuff and the mathematics of it, but I can help with whatever else I can, just like justify loose ends or whatever.
Yeah, it
But,
always helps
yeah.
to have Catholics' position on this stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, TJump, he is a Catholic, so we do have somebody on the opposite side on the or the well, not opposite side, but atheists and theists on the panel tonight.
Okay.
I think you. I think he heard Catholic the wrong way, like almost like I'm some sort of atheist, but I am mostly an atheist, but also a Catholic. So
yeah, you're a Catholic
just
atheist.
to clear it up. Yeah.
That does the opposite of clear it up.
Well, it kind of makes sense.
If you were to instantiate past days one by one and keep going, you could go on potentially infinitely. The point is that if the only thing that exists is the present, and we start counting into the future one by one, then yes, that's a potential infinite.
Now look, I agree with you that the set of past events cannot be instantiated one member at a time. That's the Zeno's argument. But it is instantiated in reality.
But the point is that if it can't go backwards, why can it go forwards? If the present is all that exists.
Well,
I understand on the B theory.
I feel like that's a fair question. I'd like to know what y'all think about that. If it can't go backwards, why can it go forwards?
I have an answer for that. Oh, what's up, guys?
Or did I reverse that? Oh, shit.
Well, not just my question again. I mean, we don't know if the universe is infinite or not. There's like an edge to what we can see, which is like less and less every day or something like that. But there's more out there that we can't see. We can't say for sure whether or not it stops, right?
The consensus is it goes on infinitely. That's the physics position.
Well, then, I mean, he's just kind of like going against what physics believes at that, right? Or am I incorrect?
Sure. But he's talking about time, not space.
Is it
so.
eternal inflation one of the primary theories right now? Or hypothesis? I guess it'd be a hypothesis probably, right?
What is that?
The fact that space is expanding outward because of dark energy and it's expanding outward faster, so it's going to expand out forever.
Can I talk about time for a second? If we have an infinite past, imagine counting up n+1 seconds from negative infinity, okay? How can you ever reach the present moment? Well, if there is time infinity past, we can never actually reach the present moment. That's a major issue with this, okay?
Well, I guess if time started with the Big Bang, that doesn't.
Well, then that's time zero. That's not infinite time past. So that would be the universe instantiating from time zero.
So if time as we know it started with the Big Bang, but the Big Bang wasn't the beginning of existence as we know it, or in general, there could have been something before the Big Bang, right?
Okay, so something before time is your argument, right?
Yeah, that's the consensus in physics, that there's stuff.
Right, just some magic, something before time existed. Okay, guys.
What do you mean magic?
No, that's the theist position.
No, that's just some magic before time, guys. You just break down physics when it's inconvenient for you guys.
Have you heard of the quantum bubble theory?
Just break physics when it's inconvenient, guys. It's atheist magic.
That's called quantum mechanics.
No,
it's called atheist quantum magic.
Stop. You're confusing physics for your dogma. Physics doesn't have a dogma that time is all there is. Physics says that time is just a field like any other. No one in physics thinks time is an ultimate.
You're just trying to ignore my argument, TJump, and I'm going to need you to stop doing that.
You don't even understand what you just said.
Addressed your argument. Because we're talking about infinite time past, and you're trying to dodge that right now. Okay?
No, I'm addressing
we were talking
incorrect
about
assessment you made.
Consider this: infinite time past. You count n+1 from negative infinity. How do you reach the present moment? Can you answer?
It's extremely easy. Start. Go ahead. Pick a number and start.
Negative infinity. That's my number.
Congratulations. That's the present. That's the present moment. Negative
That
infinity
is not
plus
the
1.
present moment.
That's the present moment. That's literally what you're doing.
All
If you pick
time
a
is
number,
not the same time, brother. I'm
if
sorry.
you start at a single point,
No.
like you are now, right now, you're at a single point when you are consciously
Then
experiencing.
there is no n plus 1.
No.
What are you
Stop
talking about?
So if you start at a negative infinity, that's your present moment. And then as you start counting, as you continue to count, your present moment keeps moving into the
No,
forward.
we live in this present moment. I'm talking about the one we live in currently.
Yes, and if you start at negative infinity and you count, you're going to get to this present moment.
Because negative infinity time is not the same thing as this present moment. What are you talking about?
No, it is the same as this present
It's not
moment.
the same as this
They're
moment.
both the
That's
present moment.
ridiculous.
There's only one present moment at any
Is
time. It doesn't
this
matter which
moment the
number you
same
pick
as 20 minutes ago? Is that the same moment as
They
now?
are both the present moment. There is only
Okay,
one
guys.
present moment.
I don't know how you talk
Do
to
you
someone
disagree?
like this, guys.
Do you disagree there is only one
I
present
think
moment?
you're ridiculous.
Do you disagree there is only one present moment?
Hey, let's be respectful, Zill. Attack the ideas, not people.
Okay, I think your idea is ridiculous because
Answer
I
the
can't
question.
distinguish
Do you think there
between
is one
20
present
minutes
moment?
ago from.
If you start with a negative infinity, that's your present moment. That's the moment that is the present moment, the only present moment that exists in the universe. And then if you start counting negative infinity plus 1, your present moment just moved. It moved up 1. And negative infinity plus 2, it moved up 2.
But isn't that a frame of reference, TJump?
You'll
Isn't that
get to
called
this
a
moment
frame of
exactly where we are
reference?
now.
No, this would be the present moment, and negative infinity would be a frame of reference, TJump. That's how we know what 20 minutes
There's
ago
no frame
even
of reference to the present moment. The present moment is the present moment. If the present moment existed
TJump.
negative infinity
Okay, hold
ago
on.
and you count infinitely, you get here. It's
Let's
very
talk about
simple.
20 minutes ago, okay?
If the present moment existed 20
Does-
minutes ago, in 20 minutes, it will be here.
Okay, hold
Right?
on. Let's okay. When I think about 20 minutes ago, the present moment does not become 20 minutes ago. So what's the confusion
I never
about
said it
here?
did. That's irrelevant to anything I said. If the present moment existed 20 minutes ago, in
there's
20 minutes, will it be here?
There's
Yes
a
or
single. No, well, okay.
If the present moment existed 20 minutes ago and we wait 20 minutes, will the present moment be here? Yes or no?
Okay, is this A theory of time
Yes
versus
or no?
B
I
theory
don't
of
care.
time or something?
Yes or no? No, it's not. It's no theory of time. It's just a simple question.
Okay,
If the present moment
the
existed
simple
20 minutes
answer
ago,
is
you
the
wait 20
present
minutes,
moment
will it
that
be here?
the present moment that you and I live in is not 20 minutes ago. Okay?
I never
It's
said
not.
it was. You idiot. Answer the question.
Right.
Hey,
If
let's
the
please
present
not
moment
insult people on the
existed
panel.
20 minutes ago, in 20 minutes, will the present moment be here? Yes or no?
All right, Zill. So he's asking a question, so that would be fair to respond to the question, and then you can, I guess, ask a question back if you need to, right?
If
But at this point, I think it would be fair to respond to the question if you have an answer. It's okay to say you
Okay.
don't know as well.
My answer would be if we rewound time such that the present moment would be 20 minutes ago, then in our timeline, the present moment would indeed be 20 minutes ago, and we would be having this conversation 20 minutes from now.
Right.
So is that a yes or no?
That was a yes.
Okay, I just wanted him to confirm. Okay, cool. But you got it. Cool.
So if we rewind the clock more than 20 minutes, let's say a negative infinity,
right?
Is the present moment going to be negative infinity? Is the same present moment going to exist then? And then if we wait a positive infinity, will it get to here?
TJump, would you say that
I see.
a zero? Just hold on. Would you say like a zero scale infinity or negative infinity would amount to more positive infinity, like actual increase in infinity?
No, I'm
If
talking
that
about
were
alpha
possible.
null, the same size. It's countable infinities right now. I'm not talking about separate size of infinities yet.
All right, cool. I just want to know. Yeah.
Okay, well, the contention against having a negative infinity of time is that we could never count n+1 to the present moment now.
The present moment is where you start. So anytime you start, if you start at negative infinity, that's the present moment. And if you count infinitely, you would get here. It's like
relative to our present moment, then not a frame of reference.
There is only
present
one
moment.
present moment. So if you started,
so let's
wherever
talk about
the
one we're in right now. Let's use this as a frame of reference. Our present moment is a frame of reference. Okay. Let's remove the word present moment from other than that. Our present moment is a frame of reference, and then we have negative infinity as a timestamp. But you can never reach from negative infinity to our frame of reference that we're experiencing now. You
No,
can't count.
you can.
You
It's
can't
very,
count
very
that.
simple. So what you're thinking
No, you
in your
can't.
mind, what you're trying to think is that if there are infinitely many past moments prior to this moment, then
Right.
if we started like before that, you'd never reach here. So
Or
like,
at negative infinity.
no. Here's the thing. At any point where you start, say you start at negative infinity 2007 or something, and that present moment is the start of all time, wherever you start counting, where the amount of time that passes, if you just keep counting, stuff will happen. Everything in the universe will happen. That means you will get to this present moment. It will happen because stuff is happening in the present moment. Now, there's an infinite amount of time before that, an infinite amount of time after that, which will never be reached. But the current present moment we exist in is the exact same present moment that you start at negative infinity. Wherever that present moment exists, if it exists, everything in reality happens. Now, of course,
there's no way that our present moment can be used to prove a negative infinity. So you're not even going to do that, okay? I'm not going to let you do that.
Who's trying to prove a negative infinity? You're the one claiming there's a negative infinity.
No, I'm claiming there cannot be a negative infinity of time.
But then why are you claiming that you can't prove that there is one? Like, who's trying to prove there's a negative infinity? That's not a thing.
You.
No one's trying to prove there's a negative infinity.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying it's impossible, I guess.
We're not talking.
So TJump, here's another issue with a negative. Well, I guess your position is it's possible there's negative infinite time.
Yes,
past.
that would be correct. There's no logical contradiction with a negative infinity.
Well, there could. Well, what about the heat death of the universe and entropy? Would it not have maxed out and caused the heat death of the universe?
No. Why would it have maxed out?
Have you heard of quantum bubble theory, Zil? Quantum bubble theory?
Infinite time past means entropy would max out by now, T-Jump.
Zil, have you heard of quantum bubble theory?
No.
Actually, yes,
The
T-Jump.
consensus in physics is that given enough time, a Big Bang is going to happen again and again and again and again.
Oh, you mean a model that you guys made to overcome this entropy problem you have and the heat death of the universe problem you have? So you make this big crunch theory to just magic it away, right?
That's a silly theist ignoramus
point of
understanding.
moderation. So T-Jump has been making substantive points, and it sounded like you were for a little while there, but you kind of just devolved your argument into
well, he kept bringing
like
up
a joke
different
argument.
theories.
If you want to present an actual argument, that's fine, but please don't come on the panel and present like nonsense stuff like that, right?
Well, so I do need to address it. So scientific theories are
but like
things
actually
that are supported by
explain your
evidence.
point. Don't just
Sure.
like we're not
I
talking
got
about
you.
Sky Daddies. You know what I'm saying? Like
So-
nobody's saying Sky Daddy on this side.
Okay.
So the scientific
Be
theories.
respectful.
Oh my god! So the scientific theories that there is a multiple Big Bangs are based off of verified principles, particles, and laws in physics. There's no spirits, no magic, no miracles, no invisible sky daddies. None of the things that have no basis. All of the parts of those theories are
Let's not use that
combinations of
either.
principles, particles, and laws in physics, and so they're justified and reasonable to believe.
Well, they are speculative models as well, are they not? Because you cannot reproduce these theories in a lab because you can't create universes, and science for the cause of the Big Bang has some. I don't know how to describe it. The singularity, right? Which is the quantum.
No one really accepts the singularity anymore. That's not a thing.
Nobody accepts. So what's the general
Quantum field.
So a quantum field would be the
Cause of the Big Bang.
Cause of the Big Bang. So has science reproduced this quantum field in a lab or anything like that?
Yes, we can interact with it. It's an existing thing that still exists.
Right. But the configuration of the quantum field that caused the origin of the universe, is there any indication of any sense of that kind of quantum field?
Yes, it's called the Casimir effect. The Casimir effect has been empirically demonstrated in the lab. Yes.
Okay, what can you explain that for people?
The Casimir effect is when you have a complete vacuum with nothing inside of it. Particles can pop into existence from nothing and cause the collapse of metal plates. So that's essentially the smaller version of the Big Bang. Instead of just one or two particles, it's all of the energy in the universe. So yes, we have observed that.
Okay, so the Casimir effect is the current model
Casimir.
for Casimir, right? Casimir is kind of funny. Casimir effect is the current model. Okay, for the uncaused cause. However, those particles did come from somewhere in our reality, just an misunderstood part of it, right?
The quantum field. The quantum field is the uncaused cause, not the particles.
Well, what caused the quantum field
It's
to be
the
there with its
uncaused
particles?
cause. It is not
Right,
cause.
it's a brute fact. And
It's
so
a necessary being.
you are presupposing that, as I'm presupposing, God is the creator.
No, because
And
there's no
therefore you're
presupposition
no
there.
better than me in your presupposition.
No, where's the presupposition there? There's no presupposition. That's
You
a
just
conclusion based on evidence.
presupposed the quantum field and the particles that
No.
was
Okay,
the
real
uncaused
fast, real
cause.
fast. So
What does the word
T-Jump,
presuppose mean?
Wait,
What?
for point of clarification, T-Jump, you're not saying that, or you're saying that you're not presupposing this necessary physical thing, right?
Yes,
and
a
he's saying you are. So why are you not presupposing this necessary physical explain? Could you please explain that for the audience and
A
him?
presupposition is something that you assume is true without evidence or argument. The evidence and arguments for why the quantum field is eternal is because there was a model that made successful testable predictions which gave us reason to believe it's eternal. So it's not a presupposition, it's a conclusion based on evidence, unlike theism. So there is a difference. We have evidence.
Okay, then would your presupposition be
There's no
that,
presupposition.
hold on. Would your presupposition then
No,
be
there's no
that
presupposition.
the
That's the answer.
Casimir effect just happened in the void one day
There's
to
no
cause the
presupposition.
universe?
Which part of anything I said entails a presupposition?
There had to be some cause of this influx of particles from the
quantum field did it. So what?
The quantum field did it, but what made the quantum field do
It's
it?
its
This
nature.
is infinite regression issue.
It's its nature. End of discussion. There you go.
Okay, God is nature. End of discussion. Right?
Okay, you don't have any evidence.
You sound just like me.
No,
we sound just alike.
I make
Yes, we
novel
do.
testable predictions that are confirmed in a lab that confirm my hypothesis. You just make stuff up and then never confirm it. That's the difference.
I don't think you have proved in a lab this Casimir
the Casimir effect. Literally, Google it.
Not in a way that would cause the origin of the universe. I don't think you have.
Literally, Google it. Yes,
Google
literally that.
Google Casimir effect. Parallel to creation of the universe. Okay.
Yes. So if
Casimir
if you can find a simple example of a small particle popping into existence, then it's possible for lots more popping.
Don't you think there's a lot of steps missing there, TJump?
No.
Don't you think there's a lot of steps missing there,
no.
guy? You don't.
If you take
just
a glass of water and say, "Hey, look, here's a glass of water," could there be an ocean of water? Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there could.
All right, maybe we should move on. Maybe we should move on.
Probably should.
Perfect. Let's get back into the video. I'm sure there's going to be some more interesting discussions coming up.
The question, the answer would be because this is the nature
Hang on one second. Sorry about
of temporal becoming.
Mm-hmm.
You might be about to say what I was saying.
If the present is all that exists.
Well,
I understand on the B
understand
theory.
your question, the answer would be because this is the nature of temporal becoming.
Mm-hmm.
There are two directions in time, earlier than and later than.
Mm-hmm.
And so even tenseless time theorists will say time is anisotropic. That is to say, it's not the same in all directions. There are two directions in time, and they are not the same.
Yes.
But time is not only anisotropic, it's asymmetric, in that there is one unique direction of temporal becoming, and that is later than. When an event occurs, the next event that occurs will always be after it, not before it. Temporal becoming in a backward direction is metaphysically absurd. So this is due to the asymmetry of time, and I think this is an asymmetry or symmetry breaker that people like Alex Malpass and Wes Morrison, whom you know, are looking for between the past and future series of events that allows you to say the.
All right, let's get it. I think he's gonna take a leap here based off of what that sounded like. So I'd like to get y'all's thoughts on this portion before we go into this, what's probably going to be a little bit off topic from this, right? So what are y'all's thoughts on this portion so far?
No thoughts. He hasn't really finished the argument yet.
Yeah, I was waiting for him to go
Gotcha.
into
It
it.
sounded like there's going to be a little bit of leap, so I just wanted to see, is everything he's saying correct? Is it incorrect? Is it
I'd say
positions that are based because he holds certain positions? What are y'all's thoughts on that?
I just need an update on what they were talking about before, because what he's essentially saying is that finite time is divided into, now he's saying finite time is divided into like 2 sets or something. I don't know.
Well, there's two different base theories of time, A and B, and I can't explain them very well, but what he just said was some people believe time moves in 2 different directions, forward and back, and then he was explaining how time is uniquely asymmetrical, where things become over time in only one direction. They do not become over time if we move into the past.
So this is what the singularity talks about, is that deviation from time changing its course or whatever. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah.
Well, in that discussion we were having earlier, the singularity, some people would believe that is the uncaused cause of the universe at time 0, I guess.
All right. All right. So, all right. Let's just continue. I'm gonna wait.
All right.
Arguments against the beginning was past are sound, but they do not imply that the future cannot be endless.
So let me ask the question more specifically then, as pertaining to...
Okay, so his point was that arguments against the infinite past are sound. That's what he was saying.
Wait,
so what are your thoughts?
That's what Billy Craig said? He said
Or,
argument...
Let me replay that. Did I misstate that?
That people like Alex Malpass and Westmore... Yes.
into the future right now.
Right.
You have me
If the future has
questioning
no end,
myself now.
as I mentioned a moment ago.
Yes.
You said
And whom you know are looking for between the past and future series
How can I
of
afford
events
this like 10
that
seconds?
allows you to
Arrow
say
key.
the arguments against
key.
the future cannot be endless.
So,
but
I guess
they
that was
do
too
not
far.
imply that the future cannot be endless.
so let me ask the question more specifically.
Yeah, so all he was saying is that the future can be infinite and the past can't be.
Yes. Right.
But,
Past cannot,
okay,
future
so why
can
did you have
be.
me question myself on that? Anyways, what are y'all's thoughts on
Well,
that?
I had you question that because you said
I might have
maybe
phrased it weird. Anyways,
okay.
What are y'all's thoughts on that?
I agree.
He's just wrong. There's the consensus in both philosophy and physics is that there is no evidence that there can't be an infinite past.
Well, we discussed the issues with that earlier, and I suppose
You
William Lane
think
Craig
you
will.
discussed it.
No, I discussed it with you. The heat death of the universe is an issue.
I proved that was
Entropy
wrong.
is an
No, it's not
issue.
That's not an issue.
I don't think you proved that.
Well, I literally just said, here's what the scientists have demonstrated that that's just not an issue. That's something that philosophers think are an issue.
The
But
heat death of the universe and entropy is not an issue?
No, there's no issue.
TJump, is this the same idea that...
issue there. Wow.
Is this the same idea that
Okay.
God has some sort of divine time or something, TJump? Like there's an actual overhead time that surrounds all of... if it's the time and space, right? That means the construct itself would revolve around like some sort of moving wheel or something that construes all time at once. Is that what he's getting at? Like a God time of some kind?
No. He's simply saying there can't be an infinite amount of past events. Therefore, there must have been a beginning outside of space and time. That's all he's saying.
Right, because there's major problems with an infinite past time, infinite time past. Major problems that you have not solved. There are major problems with entropy that you have not solved.
Absolutely no problem.
And the heat death of the universe, which you have not solved. So you still have the answer for those, TJump.
The consensus in all physics and philosophy
is what?
Just no non-issue.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen.
All of those have been debunked. None of them are actual issues. They're all raised by philosophers who have no actual background in physics. And the physicists say, yeah, these aren't issues at all. So yeah, all of the models of physics, string theory, quantum field theory, all of them say that, yeah, there's no problem with an infinite past whatsoever. Just not even a little bit. there's just no contradiction. There's no contradiction in the math. There's no contradiction in the predictions. There's no contradiction in any parts of it whatsoever. The only contradictions being presented are by philosophers with their intuitive contradictions, which have no basis in physics whatsoever.
And thermodynamics, but
No,
okay,
there's
we'll
no contradiction in thermodynamics.
That's okay. Thermodynamics doesn't apply when you put
No,
magic
it applies to
quantum
physics,
things.
but there's no contradiction with it in an infinite past whatsoever.
Okay.
Which is literally answered by literally every.
I would like to
model
see
in
that
the math.
substantiated, actually.
Literally every single model literally does that as a
I
part of the
would
basis.
like to see that substantiated specifically in response to entropy and the heat death of the universe is what I would
Literally,
like you to provide.
literally all do that. That's literally
What should I look
string
up?
theory does. String theory?
What should I look
Google
up?
String theory.
Google. That's not going to give the answer to what I'm looking for.
It
And you
literally
know
gives
that.
the answer. Like, what do you think? Why do you think it doesn't give the answer?
Theory overcoming entropy in infinite time past. That's what I should search, right?
So I would say
There's
probably
one
something like, does string theory have an infinite past or something along those lines?
Yeah, it
So
looks
anyway,
like
to
string
explain
theory
it
does
to-
not solve for that, TJump. Can you provide something solid for me?
Does string theory have an infinite past? Yes
No,
or
it does not.
What
it does
are you talking
not
about?
support that. Can you
what-
can you provide? Can you
Google
search
the question.
Can you Google and support?
The answer is
claim?
yes. The answer is yes. Yes, certain specialized models within string theory feature an infinite past, explicitly replacing the traditional singular beginning with the time with a non-singular eternal past or an infinite sequence of cosmological phases. Pre-Big Bang cosmology, developed largely by Gabriel Vinizio, and collaboration with the pre-Big Bang scenario, uses the dilation of duality symmetries in string theory to propose an eternal past, asymptomatic past. Instead of the originating from zero volume singularity t equals 0, the universe's history extends infinitely far back past to t equals negative infinity. So here you go. Here's one by Gabriel Venezio, Veneziano, and collaborators with a singular with a string theory with an infinite past. So let's ask, what is it, how does this
real quick reading that? Do you think they just went from
infinite?
think-
If there's an infinite, if there is infinite past, how come there hasn't been? What would you say? Like entropy hasn't
heat
turned
death of the universe and
death
entropy
of the
maximized.
universe.
Side note: this conversation might make me a hard solipsist, and we're all just Boltzmann brains. Or
No,
I'm just a
don't do
Boltzmann
that.
brain.
Yes, past
don't
eternal
do that.
models avoid the thermodynamic heat death paradox by demonstrating that as you trace the universe infinitely backwards in time, t equals negative infinity, the universe approaches a state of vanishingly low entropy, weak coupling, and dilute density rather than accumulating infinite thermodynamic equilibrium.
It accumulates density, it said.
I have no idea what that means. I'm not a physics expert, but yes, they have solutions to that. There's your solution.
Okay. All right. Well, look, I'm not going to say you guys don't have models. So I know you have models. They're just not very convincing to me.
Well, we don't care if they're
I'm
convincing
interested
to
in
you.
seeing something convincing. I just haven't seen something more convincing than God being the creator, guys. Like, these are serious problems. You guys got to do your special pleading and stuff to get around it.
Well,
you know?
here's the difference. The things that scientists find convincing are things that can differentiate imagination from reality by making testable predictions. God can't do that. He's just something somebody made up. There's nothing he says in any way that can differentiate him from imagination. So the fact that you find that compelling instead of the things that can make novel predictions about the universe that nobody knows yet and get them right, it shows it's a problem with you, not a problem with the theories.
Well, the theories that we're discussing cannot make predictions because you cannot perform these experiments in a lab.
No,
You
that's
can't.
wrong. You're confusing.
It's not wrong.
Stop. You're confusing the entirety of the theory. It can make. It does make predictions. They do test them in a lab. That's how the Casimir was discovered. It was a prediction made in a lab that was discovered. Now, do they make predictions of literally every aspect of the model? No, you don't need to do that. You just need to make some predictions of some things we don't know and get them right.
Right, but you're skipping over steps.
All right, before responding to that, we do have a comment from Karen Dave. Thank you very much for the support, sir, with the super chat. It's greatly appreciated. They say, isn't cyclic conformal cosmology of Penrose fame a popular and fairly well-received infinite past model? Also, it's not clear the universe is a closed system in that way. Thank you so much for the support, Karen Dave. I greatly appreciate that. Would anybody like to address their comment?
Yes, there are cyclic models that are also, there's lots of different past infinite models in physics. It's not just string theory. He specifically asked for one in string theory, so I gave him one in string theory.
Yeah, I think the
And
Big
good to
Crunch
see
was
you,
another
Karen Dave.
one.
Thank you.
The Big Crunch, I think they call it, where the universe expands until it reaches a point where entropy becomes a problem, and then it's like, oh, can't have that be a problem. Go back
I kind
into
of
itself, into the singularity again, and then expand out again, right?
Nope. Again, you're just wrong. Like, there's no one saying, "Oh, entropy is a problem. We need to change something." It's just not a thing. The reason the Big Crunch happens is because of an inversion of dark energy, which happened, as we can see, in the Big Bang. Dark energy changed. Gravity was repulsive at their earlier universe. So yes, those things.
All right. Has everybody's questions been and points been addressed, or we good to go back into this?
Yep.
Then, as pertaining to God's knowledge, as I mentioned a moment ago.
Yes.
You said
yes.
that God knows, let's
Yes.
say, the contents of every hour
Yes.
into the future right now.
Right.
If the future has no end, now I understand if God is in time and finds out every hour what happens, that's potentially infinite.
Yeah,
that
and
just
I
keeps
don't
going
agree
on
with
forever.
that.
But God knows right now
Right.
the contents of an infinite number
Right.
of future hours. So God is currently apprehending an actually infinite number of physical, temporal things.
Yes.
Which means that God is in apprehension of an actually infinite number of physically instantiated things, even if they haven't been instantiated yet.
This is a great question.
That is awesome.
How would you respond to it, Zell?
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. Well, that just speaks to God's omniscience. He is all-knowing and is able to know all future events. His free will agents will take them, and he can intervene as he wills. No problem. I love that.
It's a great objection.
And
isn't it?
what
Thank
the
you.
critic of the
That's my
argument
job.
would do here is to somehow import into God an actually infinite number of things
Yes.
so as to contradict the argument. And so the idea is, well, maybe God has an actually infinite number of thoughts or ideas or something of that sort. And here, I think that classical theism is quite correct in saying that even though the range of the things that God knows is limitless and infinite, that doesn't describe the mode of his knowledge. God's knowledge, I think, is non-propositional in character. He grasps the whole of reality as a seamless whole. He doesn't grasp it as fragmented into individual propositional bits. Rather, it is us, we finite knowers, who fragment God's undivided knowledge into these propositional bits so that we can understand them. But when we say things like, God knows that tomorrow I will have pizza for lunch, that doesn't mean that God has this individual sort of thought in his mind. And so this is a kind of modified doctrine of divine simplicity that, though I'm critical of it in many other respects, I think it does provide a very attractive model of the mode of divine cognition.
So,
I would love to hear TJump's thoughts on this response.
So he's saying that God's knowledge is like the perfect divine aseity. And so I don't really like Alex's argument here. It's interesting and creative in that he's trying to say that there's an actual infinite in God's mind, but clearly, if they think of God's mind as a non-physical thing that doesn't exist, like an object,
Transcendental mind.
So then clearly this isn't really going to parallel to the argument he's making that there isn't a past infinite amount of time, because then you'd have to be able to make a parallel that, like, for God to get to his present thought, he would have to go through infinitely many thoughts. But clearly, in the way that you think, you can jump over infinitely many thoughts as you want. So you can say, I'm going to think of an apple, and I'm going to think of an elephant, then I'm going to think of this. And so there's no temporal limit in the fact that he's thinking of things one at a time to make there be a contradiction in the same way.
The necessity of God intervenes, right? So their belief structures what Like, I mean, just in general, it would penetrate like everything, right? To some extent. If you were to say that there was a time before creation or whatever, and in that time there was an actual absolution of everything, but nothing was actually in a perfect state, then it would be uniform, right? So you'd only have that
I
much
think
to
it's
deal with
I think that's
because
called
God,
open theism, where God would be following events and then discovering. I think that's what that's called.
yeah.
But to TJump, I would say I believe it's a necessary quality for God to be transcendental and not be subject to the creation, including not being subject to physics or time, space, or time as the creator. So your argument from incredulity at this is not very convincing to me.
Absolutely none of what I said had anything to do with that.
Well, you don't seem to understand the Christian argument that God has a transcendental mind,
Absolutely
which
nothing I
lives
said had anything
outside
to
of
do with
time,
God being transcendental or
and
not. Absolutely not.
therefore, okay, so you have no problem with God being omniscient and being a transcendental mind?
Absolutely
No.
nothing I said in any part of the arguments had any relevance to
Okay,
what
so
you're
you have no
saying.
problem.
Do
Right.
you need clarification? Do you have a question, maybe, Zil?
Yes. I'm trying to clarify TJump's position because, well, TJump, if you're trying to understand what William Lane Craig is saying and what I'm saying, that God has a transcendental mind.
Absolutely. There's no mention of transcendental anywhere in there to be relevant at all to anything
This
being
is
said.
it. That's irrelevant, me saying that?
It is completely irrelevant. Completely
Tacos,
and
do you
totally
believe that's
irrelevant.
irrelevant, me saying that?
I'm trying to moderate a discussion with 4 people on the panel, 2 atheists, 2 theists. So I'm going to try to stay neutral and just keep the conversation going. And if I see roadblocks, I'll try to help you all through the roadblocks. But let's try to keep it respectful,
All right.
obviously.
Okay, well, respectfully, TJump, I don't believe it's irrelevant for me to assert the necessary quality of God to be transcendental, including being a transcendental mind, therefore living outside of time, therefore making it very easy for divine cognition to comprehend infinite forward time.
Has absolutely nothing to do with anything William Lane Craig or Alex are talking about at all.
Okay, I guess we're watching different videos. Tacos, you can keep playing.
Sorry, Jay. I'm interested in then the specificity of God's knowledge.
The specificity?
Yes, and like what your theory of truth is, because I don't know what your theory of truth is. Mine is not the correspondence theory of truth, but it's the most popular theory of truth, that for some kind of belief to be true, it must correspond with a fact and reality. I can understand the idea that God kind of intuits all truth all at once or something like that. That's fine.
Okay.
But the truths that he knows, that he apprehends, have to correspond to reference. There have to be things which they refer to. If it's knowledge of the physical world, of which he's
correspondence view of truth.
Which means
so reality is as God knows it to be.
So even if the mode of God's knowledge is instantaneous, the content of that knowledge consists in reference to an actually infinite number of physical things, something you say is not possible.
Now you're not importing these into God's mind. It sounds to me like you're wanting to have an actually infinite number.
I know you like addressing Alex. Do you have anything about his point, TJump or Zil maybe?
So he's saying that if God knows all time, all things, then he must know an infinitely many number of past events. But Craig's just going to say there aren't an infinite number of past events for him to know, even if he could know them. So it's not really
future
a
events.
good objection.
I think it's about future events, though. Because he's talking about like things need to be instantiated that don't even exist yet, and how is that grounded? See, the thing is like it's grounded in God's knowledge of that it will happen, and God has instantiated this timeline. That's my belief in how this is grounded in God's
some
knowledge.
of the discussion went to that. I know Curt wasn't here for that, but I know Curt runs an argument that knowledge takes a certain amount of energy. Like when you're learning stuff, it takes a certain amount of energy, and so or knowing stuff, right? And so God knowing infinite stuff would be impossible. So that was an objection that was brought up yesterday, actually. I don't know if that was me or somebody else on the panel, but I know that's something that Curt runs. That might be worth talking about.
All right, I'm willing to hear it, I guess.
Well, no, that was it, right? Like it. You got to have energy for knowledge, right? That was.
Oh, right. So you expend energy to receive it and store it or something? Like it's an
It
exchange?
uses a massive amount of energy.
Okay, interesting.
That would be like physical energy. That would be traceable, right?
Okay,
But,
and that
but
would
also,
be the grounding
there's not infinite
for
energy.
And that's what is that the grounding for? What's the argument that it's the grounding for?
I think that's
Knowledge?
just in response to like the idea that God can know everything.
So this is the determinist response that the machine knows everything?
I don't know if it's a determinist response. I don't know what Curt's position is, but this is just a position that he bases in natural facts about reality, and that it uses energy. You use up energy when you're storing information.
Okay, I'm gonna think about what that entails and wonder. I guess I'll talk to him later.
Because
about
imagine if you stored infinite information, that would hypothetically take infinite knowledge, right? So how could like a transcendental mind do that? That's the argument he runs.
Oh, well, if we're going by like law of conservation of energy, God as a transcendental being would not be bound by the laws of physics that we are bound by. So I don't think that applies to God.
I don't speak for Curt, but I don't think he would say anything other than like, that just seems imaginary. You'd have to demonstrate that or something, right?
All right, and I'm just going to say it's a necessary quality of God for him to be transcendental and not abide by the rules of his own creation. And we can continue.
Oppositions that God knows. And here again, I would say that describes the range of God's knowledge, but not the mode of his knowledge. And as an anti-Platonist, I don't think the propositions exist.
Yeah, well,
I think they're just ideas that we have in our minds, but there isn't any such thing as the proposition Alex O'Connor is British that's out there.
But there is such thing as an hour, in your view.
Pardon me?
There is such thing as an hour, a minute.
Well, I think an hour is a conventional unit of time. It's not as though hours and Wednesdays and Januaries actually exist. These are conventional, and we might have lived in a different, like the ancient Babylonians had a sexagesimal system of time reckoning.
Yeah. So, but earlier when I pointed this out and said that an hour is sort of arbitrarily defined by the sun, you say, well, we can just take that arbitrary measurement and use it as our sort of unit of events and say that if that went on into the past infinitely, there'd have to be an infinite number of them. And of course, if they go infinitely into the future, there would have to be an infinite number of them. But that's okay, because they continue to obtain.
Well,
it's a potential.
Okay, now
but God knows the content
let's
of
go
those
back
hours right now.
Let's go back.
So they're still arguing over the potential past infinite. Do y'all have any thoughts on this?
That is really interesting because the future has the unique quality of potential. That's what I think is interesting about that.
Yesterday they were arguing, or William Lane Craig was arguing, that there's a potential possible world infinite, or potential possible infinite possible worlds as well that God knows. So
that's like Molinism. I can tell you about that real quick.
I mean, if you want to explain how that's like Molinism, go ahead.
Yes, I can. So William Lane Craig's the guy I learned about Molinism from, and I debated re-examination on this, I don't know, a couple weeks ago or something. Basically, it's the suggestion that God has this kind of knowledge called middle knowledge, where he knows all real counterfactuals. Basically, he knows which choice is better, A or B or C, according to his standard. And that we have libertarian free will, which God, in his sovereignty, allowed for us to have genuine choices. So of all possible worlds, God has decided to instantiate this single timeline where under his sovereignty, he allows us to have libertarian free will choices as part of his plan. But he has instantiated this world, and there is a fixed timeline. So that's that's the multiple worlds thing that he was talking about. Is where God had considered all possible worlds and chosen to instantiate this one on this timeline.
So you think God considered infinite possible worlds and chose to instantiate this one?
I think that's possible God did that. I also think it's possible he just instantiated the first world,
so
like
they're
he
more
didn't
talking about
do.
William Lane Craig's more arguing about the impossibility of an infinite past, but
Yeah, that was a side thing. Sorry.
Do you think that God could make a decision if it had to contemplate infinite things?
Oh, well, for sure.
Or infinite plus one things, or infinite plus. You think God could contemplate an infinity?
Yeah, I mean, it's a quality of God for him to have infinite knowledge and power. So I definitely think that's possible
definitely
for
a
him to
statement that
instantiate
you're
that.
making.
Okay, well, I believe the Bible supports those qualities of God as well, like all-knowing and
that sounds like that's a circular claim.
Okay, well, it's not something I'm just saying. You know, I'm getting that from the Bible.
Saying, well, no, you're saying the Bible says this and the Bible supports this, right? So the Bible starts and the Bible finishes, right?
Well, that's my basis for God and the arguments of the qualities
that's circular.
Well, that's circular. So what's your
reasoning, man?
What's your reasoning for believing in the Bible then?
I have a lot of ex-Christians I've talked to that have said similar things, and that they've had it pointed out to them previously that their logic was circular, and then they realized, oh, yeah, that's a good reason to not accept that as true.
No, but also I believe
lots
that the
of ex-Christians.
Okay. Well, I believe that the Christian worldview is the most cohesive, comprehensive.
Yeah, the ex-Christians I talked to told me. Yeah, the ex-Christians I talked to said the exact same thing.
So wait, can I?
Well.
So you think that God picked this timeline?
Yeah.
And you think that he's like the biblical God, the like all just, all knowing, all loving, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do it with less extreme examples, though.
Guinea worm?
So the main things with the problem of evil are natural evil and then people choosing to do evil. A Christian, I would say the earth is cursed, creation is cursed from what happened in the Garden of Eden, and that is why we have natural evils such as hurricanes and whatever else, and diseases or whatever. And then the evils that creatures and especially moral agents like humans make is an unnecessary. It's a consequence of us having libertarian free will, because we have to be able to choose to do good, because otherwise our choices don't matter if they're made for us.
Why did he pick this timeline where our free will would cause these things?
Why?
He's all powerful. He could have picked any timeline. I'm not asking why I'm saying if he's infinitely powerful, infinitely capable, and he knew this was going to happen, why did he pick this timeline? Especially if he's all just and all loving. Like this is the problem of evil could still exist, and all of these natural evils could still exist in a different form that's not quite so terrible.
They could. Sure they could, but how do you know?
How do you know?
Don't you see the value of the choices to do good and choose righteousness over evil?
What's that have to do with a guinea worm? I could
Well,
still
that's
choose good
natural
over evil
evil.
without there being a guinea worm.
I don't know. I don't know
Okay,
why
well
God
then
made the thing.
figure it out, man, because that's a pretty big
Figure
problem
it
right there in
out.
your whole ideology.
Why? Why is that a problem? There's
Because
weird
you think
stuff that
that this
exists,
guy's
like
all
the
loving
platypus.
and that he cares about us,
Why
but
does the
somehow he's going to
platypus
allow people to be
exist?
affected by this.
Zill,
This seems
so-
ridiculous.
So Zill, the argument, why is this not working? So Zill is, there it goes. So what he's saying is that there are natural evils that are separate from the thing that you're claiming, this free will and the sin thing. They're separate from all of that, right? And
Yeah.
so this is a thing that he's saying exists in nature, and your response was, well, free will. But he's
That's
like,
natural evil.
no, that's exactly. He's like, no, that's natural evil. That doesn't have anything to do with that stuff. This is the objection that has been presented for thousands of years and asking you to address that, right? So saying free will probably isn't going to help too much with like a natural evil, right?
Right.
And a natural evil that could have been prevented by an all-knowing, supremely powerful, all-loving, all-just being.
Yes.
Who picked this? Who specifically picked this for us?
Picked this reality, and then created the nature that went into the chaos it is now. Well, it's not all chaos. It is beautiful too. There's a lot of beautiful things in nature, but there's some really
You think
bad
ticks are
things in
beautiful?
nature.
Ticks and Lyme disease? That's beautiful.
I was just saying, I know there's a lot of bad things in nature too. Like you can ask my pet alligator, you know.
Well, then what's like the red herring then? Oh, there's all this beautiful stuff too, though. Like, what's the point of that?
Because I didn't want to let that go uncommented on, because I was talking about God's creation. That's why I said that. Why is there natural evil? We live in a fallen world because of what happened in the Garden of Eden. That's my answer. Now, for moral evils from people, which is a different discussion, that's a result of libertarian free will.
So for clarification, what he said earlier was a response to what you just said, right? So the problem of evil is a response to what you just said, because it's saying that an omnibenevolent or all good, all knowing, all loving, all powerful God, this all everything God, infinitely powerful God, would create natural evil and have to have a fall. That's the problem with evil, right? That's what he's saying.
I don't think...
So when you say that, you're just reinforcing the problem of evil, right?
Well, how about this? What if none of those natural evils existed in the Garden of Eden? What if God created nature to not have this natural evils, and for water to sprout out from the ground like it did? How about that?
None of that deals with the problem.
It does because my assertion is that it was different when he created nature, and then when sin entered the world, things are now different, including natural evils and moral evils.
But that's not something an omnibenevolent God would do. It couldn't make every creature that is obviously feels pain feel pain because of humans. That would be unjust. And
why would that be unjust?
Because they feel pain that would be doing harm to others.
What did the animals do?
Well, what did we do to be in these bodies of sin?
No, what did the animals do? You're saying that we caused it. How is that just to torture the animals for what we did?
Well, we're over the animals. So I don't...
That still doesn't answer my question. Just because we're over... What?
Hey, Jaziel, can you turn on your background noise cancellation? You got a fan or something?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You're asking me why creation was cursed, and I'm not going to heaven. I don't know why.
So God I'm sorry, Taco. I'm trying to be careful here. So these terrible things happen to animals because God wants them to be punished because we sinned?
God wants them to be punished?
Yeah, he picked this timeline, so it would happen that way.
sin requires justice. There's a penalty for that.
There's a very interesting comment in chat that I'd like to bring up from Karen Dave. He asked, why do dinosaurs get cancer? But we're not going to ask that. I got a better question. Did dinosaurs exist before the Garden of Eden?
Maybe. Before?
The Earth.
Before?
Before the Garden of Eden.
Before?
Yes.
I would say the dinosaurs, if Adam named them, existed whenever all the other animals existed.
So you think that Adam existed like 65 million years ago, at least?
How old's the Earth, Sil?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Because dinosaurs are about 65 million years old, right? Or older. They're much older as well. But I think the latest ones were like the comet was like 65 million years ago or something, right? So
I cannot commit.
Do you think the Garden of Eden was that far back?
I cannot commit to young.
Or it would have been earlier than that, because there were dinosaurs eating dinosaurs. So you would be saying, dude, there's been stuff eating stuff all throughout history. So you think that the Garden of Eden is like the first cell?
The first cell.
So Adam wasn't a man.
Wait, he wasn't a dinosaur, was he? Was he a dinosaur?
Earth is, I think, 4.4.
Adam was not a
like
dinosaur, tacos.
No, you're saying that humans existed when the first cell existed.
What about RNA world?
Cell? No, I don't.
I don't buy into I guess maybe not the first cell, guys. But like early fish probably had pain. Pain is a really early thing that developed, right? So probably like early fish had pain before we walked on land. So you'd be thinking like the Garden of Eden was in the ocean, in like probably like 3.1 billion years ago or something, right? 2.5, somewhere in that range, probably.
2.5.3 point play the video.
Let me double check that. range. When
yeah, go check that.
Were the first? I'm fact checking myself. No, I'm sorry. First fish like were 530. So okay.
To be fair, breakfast tacos, there was nociceptor responses before the actual conscious experience of pain. I don't know if that really plays into
were you guys discussing?
We're trying to pin down exactly when he thinks the Garden of Eden existed. So I'm trying to find the first creature that probably had pain. So bear with me for just a minute.
Well, I'm saying so. A nociceptor response is a response to harm, and it becomes pain when there's like an emotional or a conscious experience with the response. So I mean, things were experiencing harm and reacting to it before they had the conscious experience of pain.
They would still. I mean, let me see when. So you're saying fine when pain was.
Well, I was just saying there was harm receptors before pain existed. So I mean, you could even go back to the single cell organisms, I would say. But
pain perception this is from a quick summary, but it says that pain perception as a central brain function evolved over 500 million years ago during the Cambrian explosion.
Okay.
So you think that the Garden of Eden was like 500 million years ago?
I don't know when it was.
Because there was a lot of natural evil at least 500 million years ago to now, right? Like that's the problem of the Earth is.
Yeah.
Do you think humans existed back then?
I don't know.
Then that would say that it's possible that this existed before sin, right?
No, I would say that the curse on the earth and on our sin bag bodies happened in the Garden of Eden. And prior to that, I don't think that creation was cursed and stuff like that.
For clarification, you think the earth was cursed before the Garden of Eden for what happened in the Garden of Eden?
No, not prior, because the Bible.
Okay,
because it says that it was cursed
is the
because
Garden
of what they did.
Is the Garden of Eden where humans originated, or did we evolve from apes?
The Garden of Eden is where humans originated, for sure.
Okay, so you think that the Garden of Eden is where humans originated. That's an
Yes.
interesting position. So we had stuff. Is that where all life originated?
Oh, that's where Adam named all the animals.
So 500 million years ago, we had fish that had pain. Do you think that the Garden of Eden would have been there, or do you think that the fish had pain without humans doing sin?
I think that the fish existed enough for Adam to name them. So I don't believe in evolution.
So they were feeling pain for. Well, that's just a natural fact about reality. That's not really up for discussion. But with that being said,
yeah, fish feel pain for sure.
Yeah,
fish feel pain.
And I was saying that evolution is a natural fact about reality. That's not really up for discussion, right?
Okay.
That's something that we know happened and is still happening.
Okay.
But with that being said, fish felt pain. They ate each other. Animals felt pain. They eat each other. And this happened for millions and millions of years, right?
According to evolution.
The natural facts about reality and the leading experts in the fields.
Okay,
and so
according
I'm asking,
to your
I'm not
opinion.
I'm not asking how my worldview coheres with yours. I'm trying to be convinced that your God exists. So I'm asking how your worldview coheres with the facts about objective reality that can't be questioned. I don't really care to discuss about your positions on those. I know lots of people hold really conspiratorial positions, and I don't really care to engage with conspiratorial positions, right? But with that being said, the natural facts about reality are saying that pain and eating each other existed for a long time prior to humans, and then humans arose from that. So where would the Garden of Eden fit into all of this? Because if humans, in your opinion, arose from the Garden of Eden, I'm seeing a big contradiction right there, because of evolution alone, I think that would be enough to falsify your position, right?
Well, I think we would have to jump into a big debate about substantiating those things about humans when they came into existence and all that.
Yeah, we evolved from apes, but that's not a debate. That's just a natural fact about reality. We are still apes. That's not really up for discussion. It's literally our taxonomy, right? All right, let's get back into this video.
All right.
Back to what I said. With respect to these past intervals, even though the interval we select is conventional,
yes,
the number of those intervals that have occurred up to now has to be actually infinite. It cannot be finite. But the number of those hours that occur later than any event, if temporal becoming is real, right, is always finite and always increasing. Infinity is a limit which is endlessly approached but never arrived at. And the sign of this kind of infinity is the lazy 8 or lemniscate,
yes,
that's used in calculus. And in that case, as I said, even if we concede that the set of all events that will happen has an actually infinite number of members, the point is that if you try to instantiate that one member at a time in reality,
yes,
all you get is a concrete, potentially infinite series of events.
I'm really enjoying this, and I want you to be able to respond. I just want to remind you, just for your own arguments, we're probably 15, 20 minutes from audience questions.
Sure.
So we haven't got an actual infinite amount of time. So if you...
Yes, very, very good.
Thank you. That's all I want. I just wanted to get in with the quip. But if you wanted to bring in your objection argument, just be aware of those at that time.
Okay.
But it's...
Well, I guess we can go over his real fast. Does anybody have any comments on what William Lane Craig said there?
was kind of interesting. I guess he said there would be a concrete timeline with the property of potential infinite future. That seems more like open theism, where God would more discover what happens and then, I guess, intervene in the moment.
Restate that.
It was interesting when William Lane Craig was saying that there could be a concept of a concrete timeline with the present and a property of an infinite future. Yet the timeline is concrete. But
He's
has
just saying, do you think he's just saying instantiated by that, or what do you think he means by concrete there?
Yeah, I think like instantiated, like a created instantiated timeline. But I think the idea I don't know if he agrees with it. The idea he's talking about is saying that it has the quality of potential infinite future, which is interesting. I guess it's just a theory on how it could exist with that.
I think a potential infinite future, though, would still fall into Curt's argument about there being no way to know infinite things. Knowledge is a temporal thing, right?
Right. As a human, I would not be able to handle that. But I don't know if you're saying that against God, that would not apply to God because he's a transcendental being.
Right, but that wouldn't matter. That's just a natural fact about reality, right?
I'm not sure what your point is.
Knowing things uses energy.
Is this an argument against God's omniscience?
It's an argument about infinite knowledge being impossible.
If God were
couldn't know everything, right?
Bound by the rules of our physical reality, what you said would make sense in that case. However, since God is not bound by our physical time space, your assertion does not make sense, Tacos. Okay? Argue with me.
You don't have anything that would suggest that this thing exists. You're just saying that this potential
but we have
state,
to discuss
you're
from
just
the
saying that
frame
this
of reference
potential
of the
transcendental
conversation.
state, which isn't even what Kant meant by transcendental. Transcendental is not that. There were 3 transcendental categories. I think you're confused, sir. But anyways, let's just say that you're saying that there's this immaterial mind, which is probably what you mean by transcendental. You're trying to say that there's some type of immaterial,
yes.
non-spatio-temporal mind that exists outside of space-time, and that's just made up. Minds require a brain.
Minds require a brain. That's an assertion, presupposition, and assumption.
So a lot of ex-Christians that I've talked to have been convinced by this argument. All 100% of observed minds are in virtue of brains. Therefore, all minds are in virtue of brains.
This is all under the limits of our physical reality. This is not in any way debunking anything.
It's just a strong inductive argument that's grounded in the natural facts about reality.
That doesn't debunk God existing, dude. It's just a rejection of the spiritual realm.
No, it's a strong and cogent argument that gives you good reason to not.
It's just a rejection of the spiritual realm, guy.
Immaterial mind.
It's just a rejection of the spiritual realm. That's
no.
Plain
It's a
and simple.
strong and cogent argument that gives you good reason to reject claims.
Explain to me why.
That's why the ex-Christians that I talked to were ex-Christians, Zil.
Okay. Explain to me why it would not be possible or be logical for a spirit to have a mind.
What's a spirit?
Right. So,
are you going to use terms and just assume that I know what you're talking about?
Sure.
Nobody uses that term,
dude. Sometimes.
Like, nobody uses that term.
It isn't logically impossible for a mindless or for a bodiless mind. It's not logically
I just
impossible.
provided a strong and cogent inductive argument, dude. That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I do think that there's this thing that people do with talking about logical impossibility where, like, imagine you're dreaming and you smell the color purple and you wake up and you're like, oh, I just smelled the color purple. And then you start to think about it and it's incoherent. I think that saying a mind without a brain is logically possible is like that.
Yeah, no,
Okay,
I
well-
understand. I totally understand. It's just not right.
No, it is correct.
Well, you're not. I'm not. I mean, that's not what the majority of philosophers say.
I know.
Oh, okay. Well, then.
Oh, so you're on the fringe,
fine.
Tacos?
No.
Yes, you are.
There's a
You
lot
just
of
said that
people that
you
would
are.
hold this position.
You heard that, right, Tristan?
What?
Like Michael Schumer. Is Michael Schumer in a majority philosopher? I cannot speak. Majority philosopher position on this? Probably not. He's an atheist.
Aren't the majority of philosophers atheists?
Maybe now.
I mean, to be fair, this would be like laughing
Yeah,
at
probably
someone.
depending on the areas. I think there's just more theists than atheists out there.
This would be
Maybe
like
now.
laughing at somebody for being a moral subjectivist, even though most philosophers are objectivists.
Or more, yeah, they're saying that that's real, right? And
I'm just saying, just because it's not the majority, opinion by most philosophers doesn't mean it's. I mean, you could ask for
right,
why he
the
finds it.
majority of philosophers aren't going to claim that any of what Zill's claiming, right? So, are you in
I'm
the?
not on Bill's side. I'm just saying that from what most philosophers agree on, it's not logically impossible for there to be a bodiless mind. That's
Well,
that's
that
all.
would depend on the philosopher's position, right?
Okay, I won't, Taco.
That would seriously depend on the philosopher's position, right? Because upon examination, it could turn out that within the context of the way that they see reality and understand logic and whatnot, they determine that that is incoherent, right? There's many people that say that's incoherent.
No, I understand, and I'm not.
Like I said, imagine dreaming that you're smelling purple. But you wait, and it makes sense in the dream. But you wake up, and what's smelling purple mean?
So to be clear, is your assertion, Tacos, that it is a logical impossibility?
I would probably say upon examination, that's likely. But
Now-
at least I have a strong and cogent inductive argument against it.
What about like a synesthete who can smell purple?
I don't know. What do you want me to say? Feel purple? I don't know. I don't know. That's the example I'm giving.
Okay.
I don't know. Feel purple? I don't know. But once again, this was an inductive argument. My argument did not claim a logical impossibility. It was an inductive argument, a strong and cogent inductive argument.
Okay.
Although that probably is logically impossible upon examination of the concepts. But that's not related to my argument. It's a inductive argument, right? It's saying that it's very likely that that is the case.
Okay. We were talking about something else before, but we can play the video.
Yeah.
It's how you want this.
I wonder if I might get a replacement for my tea now, which has gone.
I'm sure we can. If producer Paul can hear us,
Where's Johnny? He could make it.
he might find one.
Yeah.
He can just mumble.
There we are. Thank you.
Well, look,
Thank you.
I think your
I'd love a tea as well, Paul. Thank you.
to wrap up here, maybe I can just try to say relatively uncontroversially, this will depend on what you think, ladies and gentlemen, about the comparison between the past and the future. If the present is all that exists, and neither the past or the future exists, is there a relevant metaphysical difference? Maybe it's the fact that the past has already happened. But from a sort of bird's eye, God's eye view, saying that the past has already happened and the future will happen, and both can be known with equal apprehension and equal certitude, it seems to me that from that God's eye perspective, both of these are sort of equally plausible. Now maybe there is some actually infinite number of future events that God knows of. In which case I would say there could be an actually infinite number of past events that God knows of too. And of course, if you try to instantiate these one.
So right there, he's saying there could, according to his view of God's view, which is probably because he's thinking like a God is all powerful, all knowing, all that. That's what WLC is posing, right? That it would have the ability to have a potential, or it would have an infinite past as well as an infinite future, not just an infinite future. And so I think that's his objection that he's providing
to the end. But that works in both directions. And as you say, Dr. Craig, that's not how God's knowledge works. He doesn't think through these propositions one by one. He knows them all at once. And you said, even if we say that the set of future events contains an infinite number of members, if you tried to instantiate them one by one, you'd never get to the end. That's fine. But the set as it exists right now, that set as it exists in the mind of God.
No, only on Platonism. As I've said, I don't believe in the reality of these abstract objects. I think they're like mathematical fictions.
I agree. The only thing that exists is what they refer to. The thing that really exists are the things which these propositions refer to.
The set of all past presidents of the United States, that what the members of that set don't all coexist.
No, they don't coexist, but they exist. They like exist as something. What I mean to say is that the concept that itself has to refer to a thing in the physical world, in the real world, that is. Not, I shouldn't say the physical world.
You know, even that isn't true, Alex, because in set theory, most members of sets are not concrete individuals like you and me and mountains and pebbles.
So they're making some interesting points here. Does anybody in the panel want to address anything? Driftin, Jaziel?
Give me a second.
Gotcha. And it looks like we've got Darth the Rainsin back. Let me see. What's going on, Darth?
What's happening?
Did you want to address anything you've been hearing in the video?
Well, so my problem with William Craig, he's got this. I don't actually think he knows.
All right, let's not. I don't care about your problem with William Lane Craig. Do you have any thing you'd like to address that's been said in the arguments they're presenting back and forth, or the statements they're making?
Well, he just said that he thinks that God has all the thoughts of future, past, and present already there. So he's basically saying God doesn't think. He's just some sort of hard drive that's sitting on a table. There is no computer. It's just a hard drive.
Is that what he's saying?
Yeah, because he thinks that God already has all thoughts, past, present, and future. For example, he knows that the William Lane Craig was going to sit in that chair with his, with his hands on his knee like that.
Well, he's not saying that.
That's just
So God, he's not saying that God has to like choose everything in his view. He's saying that there's like a set of all the things that he knows. I'm not sure that's a hard drive though.
I think he's just saying
that's a set. He's saying
doesn't mean you can't think.
No, because like the guy on the right just asked him, do you believe that God already knows past, present, and future? Craig says yes to this. The implications of saying yes to this means that God is not thinking, but it is just a solid state drive with all the information already there, and not in a dynamic form, but is in a static form.
How do you define omnipotence?
Omnipotent, is that all powerful or all knowing?
No,
powerful, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm saying the wrong one. Omnipotence.
Omniscience.
Omniscience. That's omniscience.
So because to be all-knowing, there's two different versions of all-knowing. Knowing, for example, a computer knows all the logic, all the things that it's running. It knows it because it's running it. But it cannot know what it will run in the future. It doesn't know that. It can only know what it is currently running. So God is running our reality, and so he knows what is going on. So he knows everything. Yes, he knows you have your hand up, or like if you're holding your hand up, right? He knows when you're taking a shit. He can see that.
So omniscience means knowing everything, having infinite awareness, or seeming to have unlimited understanding.
Yeah, but he's talking about, but he's also including past, present, and future. And the
infinite
problem
awareness.
But the problem is with the future part. Once you say God knows the future, you have now collapsed all reality into a single state.
But God's transcendental. Why would that matter?
It becomes a problem because now everything is purely deterministic, and there is truly no motion. There's only a perception of motion.
Why?
Because it's all in static form. It's all
Welcome back, Svel.
Thank God.
It's all within the hard drive on the table. It's just a hard drive.
Well, again, why would you limit God's power
Well,
as a
he's
transcendental being, right? He would live outside of time, and so he would not just be sitting as the computer bound by the same limits, right?
no. Once you say God doesn't think, these
No,
are
I didn't say anything like that.
no.
He's
You're not saying you to say that. But
Oh,
I'm
okay.
saying when Craig is saying this, that's going to be the implications of that.
Is that what Craig is saying, though? That God doesn't think?
No, he's saying that since God knows past, present, and future, there is no thinking involved because it's already there. Like it's
just knowledge then. So there's no figuring out. It would just be knowledge, right?
It would just be a solid state drive. Yeah.
Right. So you were saying earlier something about this, something to the effect of this timeline is instantiated. Like God instantiated, stamped it into existence. And I don't see an issue with that. Do you find an issue with that, or any limits on God?
I find an issue with that from a free will perspective, because if everything is just determined, right? Like even me saying this right now, it's just me just puppeteering. It's just a playback. Then it's just a recording. It is just a needle on the hard drive.
If that is reality, I would contend that that's not reality, because I believe in libertarian free will, and which means that our choices matter. Oh, you do too?
Yeah, I do
too.
But,
high five, dude.
Yeah, and this is why I reject this idea that like God knows the future. No, God knows what is current, but He does not know what is not yet been done by you. Or by anybody.
So if we later Google open theism, because that's what you're describing, I believe, and that is where God does not know the future events, but He dynamically responds to what happens as it happens. So I think that's what you're describing.
Well, there's the thing. When I say all knowing, I mean He knows, like he knows every single particle in the universe.
Oh, then okay.
But the particles of the future don't exist because we haven't got to that.
But
we haven't reached that cause and effects.
In God's point of view, they do exist because He already has instantiated the future.
Yeah, but the implications of that is saying that the cause and effects have already been laid out. Those causes and effects already exist as some sort of platonic, blueprint within a hard drive.
Right. So I think we are discussing different theologies on how God responds to time, and maybe different theories of time, probably.
Yeah. I think it's a blunder here from William Lane Craig, because he pretty much put himself into a hole he doesn't understand. Let's keep playing.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Most sets have as their members other mathematical objects.
That's
like
true.
Numbers and curves and things of that sort, so that the whole thing is, I think, a sort of exercise.
Of course, but then you would just say that those numbers, being not a Platonist, don't exist. They're conceptual.
Yeah.
You'd say that everything that set theory sort of deals with that's purely mathematical is not real, it's purely conceptual.
Yes.
But when it comes to a set which contains reference to real physical things in the world, those physical things in the world have to exist. And if there's a set right now,
think of the set of past U.S. presidents. They don't all exist right now, and yet that's clearly a set, and it can be numbered. You can say there have been 47 U.S. presidents.
To be clear, 46, didn't Harris, who was it that won twice?
Well, some have served 2 terms, right?
Yes.
So I'm at the 47th term.
I know what you mean. And yes, but the set exists now, is what I mean to say.
No.
Like, what I mean to say is that the set of all US presidents as a concept exists right now in my mind. There it is. There's the set of all US presidents. Now, the members of that set might not all physically exist right now, but every single reference of the members of that set is something which at some point exists in physical reality.
Yes, and
Do you all agree with this?
Was he talking about stuff in the past just then?
He's
Because
just
then,
saying that everything exists in reality at some point, I think.
Yeah, but you say like these sets which are like in the Platonic realm. He's asking Craig, do you think these sets actually the sets pre-exists the actual item in all reality?
the referent is the key term, isn't it?
Yes.
Referent, like we're referring to something
Referent
that
is-
existed.
Yeah, referent just means there's something in like reality or like no, it's so like in
Or-
a proposition there's going to be some like the a cat is going to be a referent, or like you could also point to like you could have a referent in another argument. It's just something that you're pointing to for something.
Does it have to exist, or can it be a concept, a referential concept? Probably.
Yeah, it could be an action.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
generally not. It's generally not going to have to exist. It's like you can talk about stuff with language and thought, right? Like you can talk about Darth Vader. You could talk about like Spider-Man, right?
Yes, I think that
Like the referent Spider-Man might be on TV, or depending on what you're talking about, you know,
Let's see Craig's response.
the character.
here is a very, very interesting, I think, logical mistake that people like Malpass, who argue similarly, make. They infer that because each member of the set will be instantiated, that all the members of the set will be instantiated.
Yeah.
And I think that Bertrand Russell exposed the fallacy of this thinking through his version of the Tristram Shandy paradox, where Tristram Shandy tries to write his own autobiography, but he does so slowly that it takes him a whole year to record the events of one day. And he says, at this rate, I'll never finish my autobiography.
Yes.
And Russell didn't disagree with that. All he said was that if Tristram Shandy is immortal, then no page of his autobiography will remain unwritten.
Yes.
So each page will be written, but the autobiography will never be finished.
Yeah.
All the pages will never be written. This is incredibly mind-bending, but I think is relevant to this issue.
Yeah. Look,
Thank you.
So
How nice.
that's an interesting paradox. It's just saying that like he's unable to write the autobiography because there's not enough time, or maybe because it's infinite time and he has to write down the days, and it's taking him a year to write down one day, so it'll all get written but it'll never get written, right? But what do y'all think about that?
I mean, if the guy is, because he said if he was immortal, well, of course, if you're immortal, you're never going to get to the end.
No, it's because a year per day, so you're going to progressively get behind, exponentially get behind per day, right?
I'm not sure if I heard that. Maybe I misheard.
It took him a year to write down a day, but he's immortal, so it's all never going to get written, basically, right? That's the paradox. But he's immortal, so it's all going to get written, but it's not going to get written because it's like exponentially getting further away from one day.
Oh, okay.
And what's up, Curt?
How's everybody going?
Doing all right. You got any thoughts on this? This is an interesting paradox.
Yeah, I mean, again, a lot of this whole conversation for me, in math you can't divide by 0. It just makes weird things happen. 0 looks like a regular number, but it's not.
It's a placeholder.
I just think that infinity often works in the same way, where people want to treat it like it's something that is analyzable in the ways everything else is analyzable, and it's just not.
Yeah, it's like treating the space as a letter. It's not a letter.
Well, we added it to math because we needed it for certain stuff, right?
As a placeholder.
Yeah, just like 0, right? So we need 0, we use it, but there's just certain things you can't do with it.
I was thinking about 0 the other day. Does 0 of everything exist wherever that thing doesn't exist? Of all the zeros of, I don't know. Never mind.
All right, is that all the commentary?
But that wasn't even on purpose. That was an accident, really. But I think I would be remiss not to, and the thing is, you know, I had intended to respond to various of the arguments that you proposed at the beginning. We didn't even do the other premise of the Kalam Cosmological Argument.
Well, and the conclusion too.
And so, I'm a little bit stuck for choice here. It's either trying to defend the proposition that things can begin to exist without a cause, or it's asking you in the space of 10 minutes to tell me why God allows suffering. Perhaps for balance, we should go with the latter. I think the main reason that people have for not believing in God, and we didn't, of course, the rest.
I guess let's just address the points they were making real quick, and then we'll go into the next, because he's going into another topic here. So, does anybody have any thoughts on what's been said so far? Because it's about to be a topic change. This is a good point to get your internal debates in and stuff.
Awesome channel. Can we talk about A theory, B theory of time real quick? Because I think I can explain it concisely enough. Is that all right?
Do you guys want to talk about that real quick?
You have a theory about it, Zil?
No, I just want to explain what that was good. That was good.
I'm gonna go to bed, Taco. See it.
Have a good one, Drifting
man.
Wood. Good seeing you, man.
All right. See you, man. Okay. So real quick, it's how reality exists in relation to time. So A theory says that reality genuinely unfolds through time as it plays through. B theory is that reality exists as an extended space-time whole where everything is already instantiated and exists, and we're just going through temporally. Does that make sense? It's about what you consider reality in relation to time. So A theory is everything emerges and unfolds. The present is very special. B theory is everything's already instantiated and we're just moving through a slideshow.
I don't know why you would say just.
Okay. We are moving through a slideshow with the cursor in B theory.
I mean, it's not a slideshow. Slideshow's two-dimensional.
Well, this would be a 4-dimensional space-time.
Yeah, in other words, we inhabit a manifold that our psychological experience creates a sequence of events from within that manifold, the way we navigate it.
Do you believe that it emerges as the present moment progresses?
I don't know what you mean by the word emerge.
Reality, as we would call it.
I don't know what you mean by reality.
Okay, see, I'm better because that would frustrate me normally, okay? When you say stuff like that, it normally frustrates me.
Reality is a
but
very
today,
difficult word
I'm better.
for one person's mind to transmit into another person's mind. It's very abstract and different people will have different understandings of it. So by reality, do you mean the entire existence of everything that is, ever was, and ever will be? Or do you mean the local scale perception of the moments that you're inhabiting at the scale that you can perceive them? Or what do you mean by that?
Right, and I think that speaks to these two different theories of time, actually. So A theory is that quote unquote reality genuinely unfolds through time. And B theory
what
is
does the
that the
word
future
genuinely
already
mean?
exists and stuff.
What does
Why is that
genuine
put
mean?
there? All right. To finish that other discussion, A theory says reality is tensed. It has a tense. But B theory says reality is tenseless. Does that track?
I think that sort of depends on the sense. I just came up to point out you should be careful when using words like instantiated, because B theory is agnostic, but I think would have to say that like if the block is instantiated, but you're injecting kind of a creationist language and modality in there if you do that. It's maybe you would say they're all equally existent, right?
And I feel like a physicalist philosopher could use something like the quantum field into classical, or like a wave function at a classical could be that, right?
Yeah,
instantiation.
If you believe in like relativity, like general, you just believe in like in some version with stripped of particulars of the B theory. There's no way around it. You have to have B theory to have relativity, or rather, you're introduced to problems that A theory can't overcome if you accept relativity.
That's interesting because.
Kieran, can I just ask you, does that require you to accept B theory to be able to plug E equals MC squared into a proper understanding of physics?
I mean, you can, on pain of inconsistency. I mean, people are inconsistent all the time.
So for clarification for the audience, Karen Dave, what you're
proven.
saying is something like, if you claim A theory, you can't really use gravity.
You lose, you basically lose access to almost every interesting piece of physics, or at least the grounding for it. You could,
Can you go into detail on that for the audience?
Sure. So the reason that that's the case is because we've observed, and this isn't like a thing we only observed in like very specific conditions. Systems that you use every day observe this as well, like GPS, relativity of simultaneity, which is to say that let's take the extreme example so that the time dilation is such that you would perceive it. If you were to get your twin on a rocket, right? You've heard this story before with relativity, and you put your twin on the rocket that goes super fast, near the speed of light, and they come back. The twins will be different ages because they were in different relativistic frames.
Yes, they did this experiment with atomic clocks, and they confirmed it.
About that.
It's experimentally confirmed. So here's the question that you have to ask under A theory is, what does now mean? Under A theory in that environment, whose now was real, whose now was not real. Right? And so I don't think anyone really has an adequate explanation of how A theory stays around under this.
Would it have to branch off and merge back or something?
But then there wouldn't, that would not be time unfolding in the way that, like, I think people have tried to say this, but then that would be multiple nows that are actual, right? Which is not A theory, right? A theory is there is a now, and things move into and out of the now. The minute that you accept more than one, you've pretty much accepted P theory, right? Because now it's like, well, how many do you have? Why do you only have 2? Why do you only have 60? Right?
I like that.
This is a major challenge for the A theory, and I don't. Given the fact the A theory is like not very useful anyways, so I don't really feel bad about losing it.
See, I think this like weaves back into the evolutionary argument against naturalism, because our perceptions and our like intuitions are probably really only useful at the very local scale, and they become just exactly as the like planting a complaint would predict once they no longer are dealing with things like where to get food, how to navigate a three-dimensional like landscape, and the things that we do regularly, our intuitions are good at. But the things that we are just not existing on the scale of, our intuitions are complete shit. Sorry, completely bad.
I mean, there's like kind of this psychophysical disharmony argument right? Where it's like, why are we so bad at understanding the universe if you're saying that psychophysical laws are tuned, right? Like, we're so incredibly bad, it's almost comical. Why is it like that? Shouldn't we be better at these things? And evidently the answer is no.
Well, that's because God only grounds our ability to get food and mates.
Curt, would you say you hold more to A theory or B theory of time?
Because it's such an absurd argument, in my opinion. But yeah,
Zill, you're asking my theory of time?
Yeah, which would you say you're closer to?
Do you think that E equals MC squared yourself?
As far as my understanding, yeah.
And that's like an experimentally proven fact. Like we can run those experiments, and E does equal MC squared, right?
Yeah.
So that necessitates B theory.
That was the argument. So,
all right. Now that you've shown that to Zill, I do think there is an interesting comment in chat. So, Knight of Kadash has constantly been saying in chat all night, basically, that atheists are living in a chance world because it's natural processes that developed us. That is a poor terminology. The correct term is probabilistic world. Sorry, I just wanted to correct him because he said chance and it's actually probabilistic, and those are two completely different things.
Yeah, and it's probabilistic in a way that causes stochastic constraints such that there are only avenues along which history could unfold. There's not like some sort of wild manifold. Like you'll often hear some philosophers say that if brute facts are possible, then why don't unicorns just pop in out of existence? And like that's not the way brute fact would work, even if that were like the best chosen explanation.
Did you hear me talking about your Landauer limit, by the way, to Zill earlier?
I did not, but good for you.
Would you like to explain that a little bit more to him? Because I'm trying not to like go hardcore running arguments too much until we do open panels where I can debate people. Right now, I'm just trying to keep it like chill for a few days, right?
Yeah. So Zill, do you understand like basic entropy?
Basic entropy, yes, where things tend towards disorder.
But no. If you had a sequence that was perfectly ordered, then anything that had to overwrite anything within that sequence would then cause a change, which would cause some disorder. To even make a change in that sequence would cause some disorder, right?
Okay, you're establishing the closed system of it, right?
I'm establishing a perfectly ordered system. It doesn't have to be closed or open.
All right,
as long as it's perfectly ordered.
Okay.
Right? So the concept of knowledge and the concept of like knowing things is generally in like cybernetics and in computer systems, it causes a bit to be overwritten for something to become like known. And so when you overwrite that bit, you generate a certain fixed amount of heat entropy. But even if you do away with the heat, you're still going to create conceptual entropy if you imagine a non-physical, perfectly ordered system. To even do like the bit overwrites would require some change in entropy. Now, your only preserve there is to say, like again, divine simplicity, right? There are no parts, there is no like storage mechanism or anything. But in that case, then there's no storage mechanism, which means there's no addressable memory anyway. The way
his response was that God is transcendental.
Right, but the way you're using the word knowledge then does not apply. It's no longer knowledge in the human sense or anything even analogous to human knowledge.
Okay.
Would you like an out? I have one for you.
Would I like an out? Let me hear your out.
Sure. Here's what I'll say. Landauer limit is about changing information, which is indeed necessary for computation as we understand it. So a very interesting thing. But you could argue that because God is atemporal, there is no change. Now, don't do this, right, unless you're prepared to get asked the questions about the nature of God's creation and the creative act, because you're going to have a hard time having a truly timeless being take action. However, if you want to take that position, well, then there's never any bit overwritten. There's no change. There's nothing to change. Basically, God has,
and that rules out an incarnation, rules out a divine mind that is incarnated.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of bullets to bite, but all you have to do is say, well, I mean, and honestly, I think that is the theist play, right? That's the thing they're inclined to say is, oh, well, God doesn't change.
Yeah, it just rules out Christianity. It also rules out prayer, and it rules out the Bible. So
it's infinite
it's
knowledge.
The best move, but it does rule out those.
Okay, let me run with this, Karen. So God's infinite knowledge would entail that he does not learn anything, and therefore this energy would not be expended if he was subject to the rules of physics.
Well, I do think that you maybe, I guess I would say, I think that the Alex O'Connor argument that we were listening to that sort of points to the fact that either you like Craig's defense is, well, God has this timeless collapsed simple set thing that God uses for reference. And I don't know about whether God has to have computation to have thinking. That's above my pay grade in philosophy.
Should we say it's like B time that he understands? He just understands the B time or something? Like he just has knowledge of all of it?
I think that would be.
Isn't that it?
I think that God's attitude towards time would be B time, right? It would kind of have to be, right? Like God would view the universe.
To me, that's
as
Spinoza's God.
Yeah. So I think that's perfectly reasonable, right? And it is. I think Spinoza's God kind of concept. But again, you can take Craig's out, and then you just have to be ready to then defend the fact that you've basically pulled a timeless God. Craig has been cornered on this before, and his defenses for all the implications are like mega bonkers. Like they're really, really, really mega, insanely
really. Well, how about
really
this?
Hard bullets to bite.
But if
and he does it, but
if a Christian says the universe had a beginning and God was the cause, then space-time had a beginning.
Right, but that introduces
God would be necessarily atemporal.
If you say there's a cause to the beginning of the universe, because that would introduce entropy.
Right. And there's the Proclus dilemma too, right? Which is just if God, if God made a positive action to create, then actions have a before and an after, which implies time. So how could God take the action of creating unless there was already time? So it seems like, and this is like Aquinas' entire project of rescuing the good parts of Aristotelian metaphysics too. Why? Because Aristotle's prime mover argument also points out, well, actually, this thing can't move, right? It can't. So there has to be something that's infinite. It's a really, really tough place.
So.
Yeah.
And
why can't God be
Aristotle and Aquinas both settled on an eternal universe where God's act of creation was eternal.
Exactly, but then God never created, right?
Well, why couldn't
God did not create?
Why couldn't God have existed atemporally and then instantiated space-time? Why couldn't he have done that?
Because that's an event in time.
Yeah.
Well, he invented time itself, right? Space-time.
But that means that there was
if he invented it, he
created it.
Time. There was a before and an after. I don't think you're.
Well, he invented time itself, so he was
Did
just
God
atemporal
know about time before God
that.
invented time?
He was just atemporal.
Let's imagine there's no time at all.
Atemporality.
Okay? There is no time, but there is a God.
Right. I'm imagining.
Why is there anything now?
Because God exists in the spirit realm.
So there is something now. At one point, there was nothing, and there was a God.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there's a moment before where there's nothing, and then there's a moment after where there is something.
Well, the Christians also have to assert that a spiritual realm exists.
But God would have changed from the state of not having created to the state of having created, which would introduce a bit overwrite, which would introduce entropy.
Or at the very least, it would mean that there has to be some concept of time. Because all we really mean to say by time is the march of successive states, that there's a difference between one point and the next, right? And so you said God invented time. Well, did God have to invent time? If so, when did God have time to do that? Right? Because
when he existed atemporally,
but then that would just be
that question
different,
doesn't apply.
Sure, it does, because is it just a different timeline that you're discussing?
I mean, I can make that play
In the
anywhere.
spiritual realm, it could
say
be.
that Zil used to exist azillically, and now he exists zillically. But
I used to
like,
exist.
it doesn't really say anything. It's just using a word to escape a problem, and that word doesn't even mean anything, right?
Well, I'm saying God is necessarily
not a word that has
transcendental.
meaning.
I'm saying God is, as the creator, he's... Go ahead.
Can you explain what transcendental means there? Because I have to confess, I've been asking in the chat all night. I don't understand what you mean there, because it doesn't sound like the way that Kant uses it, and that's generally the way I hear it.
Well, I might not.
So for clarification, we actually spoke about this earlier in the conversation. When he is saying transcendental mind, he's talking about a non-spatiotemporal, non-physical, there's immaterial physical. So it would technically, I was just using easy terms, but it would be like he doesn't mean physical. He's saying like non-physical, non-spatiotemporal mind. I don't know what that means, but that's what he's going for, I think. If I'm gonna, that's my steel man. Am I right, Zil? Tell me.
Oh man.
Again, like, here's the thing. If I say I have a dragon in my garage, and that dragon exists outside of time, doesn't have any physical reality, doesn't have any like experience, and doesn't know anything specific, like, what is that dragon composed of, and how does anybody know whether it's there or not?
Well, did the dragon reveal himself to you?
Let's say that I say that. How does anybody verify it?
Well, good luck convincing people.
Yet, no, it seems like that strategy works great. As long as I invent enough words that describe the dragon's inscrutability, lots of people will believe it, apparently.
Oh, if you wrote something like the Bible about the dragon, you could get a bunch of people to believe you.
So moving back to atemporality. There's like, do you accept Craig's position that the universe has a beginning point, or do you go with Aquinas?
Interested. What does Aquinas say? But I would say that
Aquinas says that God's creation is eternal and that there's no beginning point for the universe.
I would say the universe has a beginning. I would take Billy Craig's position. And the Kalam Cosmological Argument.
If the universe has a beginning and God is the cause of that, God did something in time. There's just no escaping that in my mind.
No, there is. If he created time at time zero, then he's not bound by it.
No, Zil, sorry, I keep forgetting you're a Christian.
Yeah.
Like, the incarnation is literally God acting in time. So you just don't get away with this. If you believe in the incarnation and you're a Trinitarian, then God has to have updated bits. Jesus increased in wisdom and knowledge and stature with God and man.
Well, my position that God is transcendental does not preclude him from entering into our space-time. It doesn't.
Then, of course, he's capable
doesn't prevent
of
him
updating bits and increasing the entropy. Do you think Jesus had no entropy?
I'm sure he did affect entropy.
Right. So God can act within time. You've already accepted
he
that
can.
when you're a Christian.
He can, but he's not bound by it. And I think that's what.
Okay, well, I can leave my front door and I'm not bound by it, but it exists and I cross its threshold, right? So that means that God can act in time, which means
but God doesn't do all his
follow the natural laws that affect information within time. He's not atemporal. He's maybe facultatively temporal, but he is temporal when he wishes to be, which means he's not atemporal.
Why can he not be atemporal while manifesting in this reality?
Well, how?
It's an exhaustive dichotomy. If he's atemporal, he's not temporal. If he's temporal, he's not atemporal.
First of all, also, Craig, you're disagreeing with your boy Willie C here, because he thinks that the minute that God created the universe, that was the start of God's temporality. So you got to be careful here, unless you're going to deviate from Willie C's argument, because his position is super nuanced.
Were you talking to me? But you said Curt.
I'm sorry. If I did, that was a mistake. So.
Oh yeah. He's saying, yeah, but he's not saying God is bound by time. Is that why do I keep thinking you guys are saying this?
I don't know. Here's what I think is that I think the ability to perform an action that's discrete, that has a before and an after, requires time. And if you want to say, well, there's a spiritual clock which God runs by in another plane, and God created the block universe of our time. Even if I were to grant that, like, cool, that sure, multiple timelines. If there's one block, why can't there be two? Even if I were to grant that, I think logically you would some of these moments would have to coincide, in which case it's still the same thing. It's still the same time, and God didn't create time. In which case God didn't create everything. And so I think that's a pretty big bullet to bite if you want to take there is a definite act of creation which gives the universe a distinct start.
I would just say God exists in a spiritual realm where as soon as he instantiates space-time, he does not get sucked into it and then limited by it.
But he absolutely does get sucked into it if you believe in the incarnation and Jesus.
Okay. Getting sucked into it means like he's bound by it, right? He is not bound by his creation. Why do I keep having to repeat this?
I think because the challenge I'm putting forward is not that God is bound by time, but in order for God to do the things that you're saying that God did, God has to take an action, which means that there's a moment before that action. There would have to be time.
Does that limit his power?
I don't know what you want to say. What it does is it changes God's relationship with creation, and if you say that, then you just have to affirm a contradiction and say it's a mystery. So if you say God does not exist in time, God created time, that's just a contradiction. It's called the Proclus dilemma. It has been frustrating Christians for a long time. It's very hard to escape from. If you want to take the other argument, right, which is there are a couple others, like the Craig argument, where there was a moment where God became temporal and that was part of what God was, then that's an interesting position you can explore. I think it's challenging. If you want to take like the Aquinian, the Thomistic position of like the internal creation, well, then what you're really saying is that God created the earth and not necessarily the universe, that time, the universe, and all these things existed always together. And in fact, the universe is infinite because God's act of creation is infinite and eternal. So those are kind of like that's like the menu you've got in front of you. If you have a solution to the Proclus dilemma,
on the Thomistic view, for me, like that just means you don't need God because the universe can be eternal.
Well, that's not the Thomistic view, but I know what you're saying. I agree, but they think you need him.
All right, let's try to wrap up here these points in the next like 2 minutes so we can get back into this video. We're never going to finish it.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that I believe God exists in a higher realm, and I would just say that he is able to exist in a higher realm and instantiate our space-time, and there's no problems there.
I don't even know what the word higher means there. What does higher mean?
For now, let's just say it's a higher spatial space-time dimension. What if it's a higher spatial dimension?
Like above us on the ecliptic, above us on the earth, above us on
imagine Flatland 2D. Imagine a two-dimensional being, what their life is like. And then imagine our three-dimensional life and how complex that is. And then imagine a being in a higher spatial dimension than us and how complex their life is.
Just a bigger number?
We experience the third dimension physically. We're
in four-dimensional space-time.
Space-time, 4 dimensions. So this would be a being who experiences the 5th, 6th, or 7th dimensions. Can you imagine a being such a being?
I've listened to like 70s Motown.
Yes, right. Actually, I can.
Maybe you've seen God. Maybe you've seen God. Okay, look. Imagine that these spiritual beings are just in those higher spatial dimensions. Now, I say that because it makes it more plausible to understand that Perhaps it is plausible God could be one of those higher dimensional beings and instantiate our space-time that we're bound by.
Okay, if there are extra dimensions and beings that exist within those extra dimensions, why do we know there's only one?
Only one what? Dimension or God? There's more than one dimension.
I said if there are beings in extra dimensions and we like think that there is the ability to act on our like space-time manifold from those other dimensions, why is it necessary logically that there's only one such being?
Well, there's all the angels and the demons. There's, you know,
In other
lots
words,
of
there's not just one God, there's many, many gods.
No, God. Well, the Christian assertion is that God is the creator of all of them as well.
And
So
how do
he
you
would
demonstrate
be,
that?
well, I can't control God or call him down or anything, so I can't.
Yeah, so how do you demonstrate that these dimensions exist and have beings that acted within them?
No, I was just putting it in terms as a suggestion for how God could have created
It's
our
just a
space-time without
linguistic
being
escape
bound
hatch
by
is
it.
what it is. It's a way for you to say
It's
something
a
that
model.
sounds like a response and performs that
No.
you've like answered the question, when in fact it has no cacheable receipt, right? I've explained why I accept B theory of time, and the reason I do it is because we've done experiments that show that energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. How do you know the thing you are now saying? But if you're a young Earth creationist, like obviously you would want to accept the idea that like there's an atemporal God, because that means you only have like 6,500 years that you have to explain. So it really does lower your cognitive burden. And since our evolution is only going to allow our brains to easily have intuitions about the local scale, what you're able to do is just bracket all the things that you would otherwise need to know, and you can deal with a much simpler, much more local understanding of the world, which is cognitively appealing to a large number of people. I think that's one of the
Thanks for
things
that
that drove
explanation, Curt.
Christianity's adoption, was that it was just so much less complex than the philosophical systems of the Greeks that it replaced.
Thank you so much for that, Curt. You know what? It actually doesn't matter if the Earth is young or old, because it makes no difference on who God is or his nature and what we've been talking about.
Well, it does because of the problem of evil. As mentioned earlier, the problem of natural evil would be a major problem for you, because either then God is, and the other problems arise because you have the natural fact about evolution and pain receptors existing for like 500 million years. So you would have to claim that for the early life to be impacted by sin, and that's the reason that they have pain and suffering, you would have to claim that humans existed and Adam and Eve existed specifically in the Garden of Eden and had done sin, or something like God cursed the earth beforehand, knowing that they would do that. So this was always a thing. And that would, I think, go against what the Bible says about the Garden of Eden. So you would either contradict the Bible or just have like an incoherent position.
Right, so we're not going to talk about it, remember? Because I believe what the Bible says. Whether the earth is young or old, God remains the creator, and we're not going to talk about it anymore, right?
I just feel like there's been incoherency that's been
Are you just
demonstrated
trying to
here
kick
tonight.
me off the panel, Tacos?
No. I'm
okay.
Talking to you man to man, saying that this seems like a massively incoherent worldview that you currently hold.
What,
in the
Christianity?
In the most respectful way.
Christianity?
Christianity is incoherent, absolutely.
Guys,
with the problem of
do you want Christians to come up on your panel?
Well,
dude?
Zill, specifically the stuff that was just addressed.
Both of y'all are suckers.
Specifically, the people that were or specifically the prior conversation to what I just stated and what I just stated, right? So, like, I feel like those in conjunction would be a pretty strong defeater for your position, right? So, if Adam and Eve had existed in the Garden of Eden 500 million years ago, that would have meant that humans have a direct line from humans that hasn't evolved for 500 million years, or maybe changed a little bit. But you would be rejecting evolution, saying we aren't apes. And so this is going to be demonstrating the incoherency of your worldview, right? You would be suffering if you were to hold a position like that. You would have what William Lane Craig would call a silly worldview, right?
Oh, thanks, dude.
Because it would be upon pain of incoherency.
Zill, do you know that William Lane Craig thinks that Adam and Eve were historical individuals, but they were not members of our species?
Yeah, I think he had a book called In Search of the Historical Adam about something like that. Yep.
So do you think that that's a silly worldview?
I cannot, I am not and have not committed to any of these worldviews as far as the age of the earth, or, well, I definitely believe evolution has issues, but I would like to talk about the time stuff, and I would rather talk about that stuff because I know how to talk about that stuff better. Does that make sense?
I would love to know when you actually, if you think the Garden of Adam and Eve was, or the Garden of Eden was real. I would like to know when you think that existed. That is the most interesting piece of information I could learn tonight.
All right, either 6,500 years ago or 60 bajillion years ago.
So
That's
6,500 years ago or 500 million years ago?
Yeah, whenever it existed.
So
you're not going to get me to commit to a time.
That both of those positions suffer from the same incoherence, I think is how you would say that.
Yeah, and let me ask you a question, Zill. On the 6,500 years, how did it get written into Hebrew? Like who learned the story to write it in Hebrew?
How did language begin and stuff like that?
Did you not hear the thing I said? How did it get written
Hebrew.
into Hebrew? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I guess language happened and then Hebrew happened. I don't really know.
Language happened and then Hebrew happened. Sure. Yeah. Right. Who wrote it and how did they know?
Well, Moses wrote the first 5 books and then he led the Israelites, and then they had a chain of
on
people
your view,
who
Moses
carried
wrote
down
the story
tradition.
Of the Garden of Eden, right?
Moses wrote that, yeah.
Okay, how did he know?
Well, Christians believe it was divine revelation from God.
So God dictated it to him.
I guess they say it's inspired word, so I wouldn't say like God spoke it to them necessarily.
Okay,
That's
so
what you mean
Moses
by
made
dictate.
it up.
No, I would say God influenced their thoughts in what they would write.
Yeah, he had his thoughts influenced by a magical being who can't act in time, which means he made it up.
No, he can act in time. Wait, why can't God act in time?
It's an exhaustive dichotomy, Zill. He's either atemporal
or... All right. Oh, are you done, Tacos?
Yes, that's why I went silent.
So, okay, Curt, but were you suggesting God cannot enter into space-time, or that would limit his sovereignty if he did so? Is that it? Or limit his omnipotence?
Okay, if something is spaceless
No,
and
he wants
timeless,
to
it doesn't exist in
broadband
space and
call.
time, right? So just to be clear, if something is spaceless and timeless, it cannot inhabit space or time, right?
I disagree.
So then you're saying that something that is spaceless and timeless exists in space and time, which means it's not spaceless and timeless.
No, to consider my suggestion of a higher being. Imagine you're you.
Go, go, go.
The main reason people have for not believing in God is the existence of evil or suffering. I prefer to say suffering because evil is a sort of morally laden term, right? And to me, this argument is sort of endless and never makes very much progress in the sense that people suffer and theologians have theodicies for why they suffer. It's because of free will, it's because of
But don't you
soul
think
building.
that genuine advance was made by Alvin Plantinga and his discussion of the free will defense?
Not really. But what I mean to say is that, no.
You don't think he put the death knell to the logical version of the problem of evil?
I'm not convinced in that, like, I'm not sure that the logical problem of evil ever really held up. But I don't.
Oh, well, that's all right.
I kind of don't want to.
That's progress.
But I kind of don't want to talk about that because I think that there is a class of individuals who are usually.
Do y'all know why Alex doesn't think the logical problem of evil doesn't hold up?
Yeah, because the idea that soul building is like this beneficial thing is believed by many philosophers to have done away with Mackey's original LPOE, but I don't think it does anything at all. And in fact, if you do a proper celestial demographics analysis, the soul building argument is literally like the most ridiculous argument ever made.
Soul building.
Yeah.
I looked up, so if it's the same one, Alvin Plantinga, free will defense, Plantinga, is an all-powerful, all-knowing, and perfectly good God can coexist with evil because of the value of freedom, and limits of power. This is what he says. Even an omnipotent God cannot force someone to freely choose good because forced choice destroys true freedom. I wouldn't say that's a limit. I would say that's a conscious choice by God to give us choice. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, Zell, we're familiar with the
before.
argument, so you can familiarize yourself with it on your own.
Oh, okay. I didn't know you guys already knew.
The primary issue is that on virtually all like soteriologies, the largest number of inhabitants of the celestial like realm are individuals who died prior to any soul building, right?
Oh, okay.
So this means that there's no benefit to the soul building soteriology at all. The vast majority of people who benefit from any kind of salvation are benefiting by technical qualifications and not by their actual experience as like living human beings. But Zell, I don't think you're getting the celestial demographics issue. So let me, if you don't understand what I'm saying, I'm happy to explain it.
Celestial demographics. Well, you talked about soul building, but I'm not sure what that means. Well, I guess
you're a Christian, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you believe that heaven is predominantly available to people of the Christian faith, even if like there are non-Christians who can enter heaven. You believe that it's predominantly available to people of the Christian faith, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's false on Christianity unless you have a really weird, bespoke understanding of Christianity.
Oh, really? How so?
So do you believe that there's eternal conscious torment in hell?
Probably.
Okay, so if you believe there's eternal conscious torment in hell, what happens to a child who's 4 years of age who dies of pneumonia or diarrhea?
I believe there's an age of accountability.
Yeah,
so
correct. Good. So
all children go to
your
heaven.
understanding is standard Christian doctrine, right? So all children who die before an age of accountability, and let's just randomly set it as early as we can like reasonably do so. We'll set it at like 8, right? So all children who
Hey, can we
die
go to
before age.
Hey, can we please go to a less extreme example here?
What's extreme?
Just something not involving that.
I mean, it's literally how I make the argument. I don't know how to describe anything besides that.
All right, well, I guess finish the argument and then change topics.
If you don't want me to make the argument, I'll just stop.
Yeah, I don't think we should be talking about that type of thing exactly.
How can we not talk about that kind of thing if it's talking about the like people who go to heaven? Like, how do you get to heaven, Tacos?
I mean, that's fair. It's just a sensitive topic. Cover it respectfully, y'all. Don't argue during this portion.
Yeah, I'm not trying to like draw emotional stuff. I'm just talking about the actual structure
I'm
of
just
the
saying,
situation.
while covering this topic, just be respectful, please.
Yeah. So you agree that there's an age of accountability, and that people who don't make it to that age of accountability are automatically put in, right?
Yes.
Okay. So how many people do you think there have been in human history?
How many people? If I were to guess, what do we have? 6.5 billion right now?
No, it's closer to 8.
We got close to 8 billion.
But I'm talking about in all of human history, right?
I don't
You think there's been a trillion? Wow,
that's a lot. That's a lot.
Impressive
I don't know.
Most demographers put the number somewhere between 80 and 120 billion. So let's go really low. We'll go with 80 billion, unless you want to hold to the young Earth. So do you want to hold to the young Earth?
I'm non-committal on young versus old, even though I have.
Which numbers do you want to run? Do you want to run the demographers' numbers, or do you want to run the young Earth numbers?
He said 500 million or 600 or 65.
Well, so if we accept 500 million,
go with the older one.
Million years, then the demographers' number is way worse.
Go with the older one.
Oh well, I mean, by old, of course, I'm just talking about what demographers say about like Homo sapiens, right? So are you going with like this bespoke understanding where like there have been human beings for 500 million years?
I think if a Christian takes old Earth view, they probably think something like evolution happened, probably. So
yeah, so that would be a demographic analysis, which would generally max out at a max of 120 billion and at a minimum of 80 billion. So can we just run with 80 billion? Is that okay?
Sure. Run with 80 billion.
On 80 billion, what percentage do you think passed in like early infancy or before a young age?
Oh, well, they used to a lot more earlier.
Yeah, maybe, correct. So what percentage?
Like 8%, I guess.
No,
just
it's 50%.
Throw a number out.
It's 50%.
50%.
Yeah, correct.
Oh my goodness.
So it's 50%. So that's 40 billion celestial inhabitants who never had any soul building. How many Christians have there been in human history?
In human history, so Christians believe people were saved before, Jesus came into history, but Christians.
Okay, so what? So that's very good. No, that's good, Zil. So what percentage of people were saved before, like, the onset of Christianity?
Right. This would be like a question of Israelites when they died. Did they go to heaven?
Just give me a number, please. What percentage of people prior to the year 2000 were saved?
Percentage. At least 50%.
Oh, wow. Okay. So now we have another roughly 16 million or 16 billion people who now go to heaven without being Christian. So that's 57 billion people now in heaven who are not Christian. So give me again the total number of total Christians ever in human history.
Okay. Since 2,000 years ago, roughly. I don't know, what, like 3 billion or something, maybe more.
I think that's certainly reasonable on any realistic assessment by Christians of how many Christians will be saved. It's maximal to say it's 3 billion. But if we say that it's every person who ever set foot in a Christian church, it's probably closer to 6 billion, something on that order. So what you have then is a total celestial population. We started with 40, we added 17, so we get to 57, and we add another 6. And that's 63 billion people. Like if we stop time right now and
Can we just get to the conclusion of the argument?
So the vast majority of people are both not Christian, which means they did not participate in the plan of salvation, and most of them didn't even experience life on earth. Most of the population is just people whose only experience is having been in heaven. So soul building had no effect on them.
That is very interesting. And I have not heard the discussion on soul building before, but I basically get what it means. That's interesting. I understand what you're saying. I don't really have a comment on it. I don't think that's a massive number for people.
It destroys Plantinga's argument, right? Plantinga has no way to respond to that.
Wait,
and real fast, I do need to clarify something for the audience. So the numbers that Curt was discussing here are rough numbers. They're not exact, and he's talking about historical estimates of human populations over the duration that humans have existed. All right. Sorry for the point of moderation. Continue.
Okay. How does that destroy Plantinga's argument again?
Because then the whole plan of salvation had less than a rounding error's effect on the actual number of individuals who are saved. And the soul building that Christianity proposes for making Christians better people and making it worth going through all the suffering that they go through to get to heaven doesn't affect the vast majority of people who get to heaven.
Are you saying that makes God's plan incoherent in some way?
I don't know. I mean, if you think that somebody is smart who does that kind of work to save maybe 3 or 4% of the total number of people saved, if you think that's smart, you might think that's smart. I think that's a judgment call people have to make based on their own aesthetic internals.
Well, if you're saying smart is a judgment of God's actions, well, I think that God planned for us to have libertarian free will. So it's not that he's...
Yeah, but again, the vast majority of those individuals did not exercise any libertarian free will to get there.
Right, because they died before the age of accountability. So this goes back to like the natural evil stuff, I guess.
Well, and that means that any suffering that has been taking place is taking place purely through the fiat of the divine will and not through any kind of soul building. I mean, it's obvious that there is a potential celestial realm that is populated by individuals who did not use free will to get there and do not need to have free will to enjoy it there.
In that special case of accountability, yeah.
It's not a special case. It's the majority position in heaven.
That is interesting. If it is, I mean, I know people used to die a lot more back in the day, especially because medicine, lack of.
When I was in training in medical school, the number one cause of death on earth was diarrhea. So,
oh my goodness.
And that was largely marginal cases, right? Largely people who were either like very young or very old.
Oregon Trail out there, guys. Well, I guess it might make the population in heaven strange in that way. I still think it's okay for that to happen, and for God to still value the ones who reach age of accountability and choose to obey and be righteous and things like that. I think that's
Right.
still
Again,
valuable.
like I say, that's like an aesthetic judgment call on someone's like position, right? You can think that somebody who wastes 96% of their effort to like get a 4% return, I mean, that could be seen as smart by people, but you know, everybody has to make their own call on that.
Okay. All right.
Y'all ready to get back into the video?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's do this. Let's pull this back up here.
Be completely ignored in the discussion of suffering, and of course, non-human animals.
Yes.
Theodicies that are provided for suffering, the existence of suffering, the fact that there's human free will, the fact that there was a fall, the fact that our souls will somehow be developed, the fact that higher order goods like bravery and courage can be achieved, are plausible. But none of them apply to non-human animals. None of them apply to these animals who for hundreds of millions of years.
Yeah. I've written quite a bit on the problem of animal suffering.
I know. So perhaps we can rehash it. Because I'd like to know why it is that you think that for these hundreds of millions of years, suffering is the defining quality of the animal experience, to the extent that this is the mechanism God chose to bring about complexity of life on Earth. Survival of the fittest is the same thing as the death and destruction of the unfit. Disease, predation, starvation, for hundreds of millions of years. And for some reason, when we get to humans, something kind of special happens, we're ensouled, whatever it might be, such that our suffering gets to be redeemed, but not theirs. We're talking, I mean, if I were to go into the details of what happens to animals in the wild on a regular basis, I probably couldn't upload this footage to YouTube because it would get flagged for being too extreme, as you well know. So perhaps in the time remaining, we could talk about why it is you think that God would not just allow this, but build it into the very mechanism by which life comes to vary in its complexity on Earth.
First off, I think that's a very powerful argument against an omnibenevolent God, even if people think the logical problem might not be so great. But I think that is a very powerful argument, you know?
Yeah, we were touching on...
It's incredibly powerful, and the evidential problem of evil is equally strong to the logical problem, in my opinion.
I think intuitively this argument just makes sense to most people, right? Because you watch nature documentaries, and I mean everybody grew up watching nature documentaries, I'm sure, right? I mean everybody's seen Shark Week, and I mean nature is wild, man. That was an interesting choice of words. Interesting choice of words there, but yes, it is wild, man.
But it's not just dramatic like vertebrate stuff that is like pretty horrible. There's like so much weird and bizarre parasitism. Like there's a species of parasitic wasp that is parasitic on other species of parasitic wasps. But to the bigger like issue, like there's like cordyceps that like causes organisms to climb up onto like leaves and trees to get eaten by birds to keep processing the fungus through the system. There's all kinds of pretty horrific, like just evidentiary evils. At least in the sense that like if somebody is going to describe what seems like ornate and useless killing and suffering are evil, which is like that's a judgment call.
Right. And this is we were talking a little bit about natural evil before, what I call natural evil, and I think that's what this is about, right?
Well, it's not so much like agentic evil as just suffering. Unnecessary suffering.
Yeah. It needs to be answered. I'm down to play the video if Billy's got an answer for it.
The question here is whether or not the existence of animal suffering in the world is more plausible given naturalism or atheism than it is given theism. And I would argue that animal suffering is vastly more improbable given naturalism or atheism than theism. And therefore, even if our inability to penetrate divine psychology and say what reason would have God would have for choosing an evolutionary process, which I think we can speculate about, nevertheless, the balance of probability is overwhelmingly in favor of theism. Animal suffering is more plausible, probable on theism. Now,
what?
So I think that is a very interesting claim. I want to hear Zill's thoughts on that first, but I don't want y'all to go after Zill's thoughts on that. I'd like to hear Zill's thoughts, and then I'd like to hear y'all respond to William Lane Craig. And then if Zill's cool with it, I'd like y'all to address his thoughts after that. I think that could be a cool discussion right here, because William Lane Craig made what I think is a pretty grand claim. That's a pretty big claim, right? It sounds like.
Yeah, he was just like, no, you. I love it. It was great. All right, so I guess his point is that why would evolution support animals all eating each other rather than working with each other or something like that? I assume that's his point, but what do you guys think?
I'm pretty sure that's not his point.
I can't work out what he could possibly mean by that. Like, I don't even know what it means for theism, any theism that William Lane Craig runs, to not have some sort of God that has a benevolence factor.
Guys, he telegraphed it at the beginning of the debate. He's going to go to the why is there something more than rather than nothing? Who created the universe? Why are there moral values at all? If we find suffering bad, it's because there's a God.
That's not even... What he said was something very specific, though. I really want to gesture to what a wild swing that was. To say...
You're going to get almost certainly what I just said. There's no
I know.
Defense.
I mean, like...
Okay. Let's get this out. Let's let Karen Dave get this out because he's not wrong. There's a very specific claim he made there, which is why he stopped and why Curt yelled. I think we should actually call that out to the audience because I don't think anybody specifically called it out.
He said it's more like it's more plausible, it's more predicted under William Lane Craig's theism that there is animal suffering than under naturalism. He specifically made that claim.
He said vastly.
Yeah, it's an unreal
he's going to
claim.
equivocate on
I
suffering.
think even Zill was shocked by that one.
I was.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right, but I just want to I really want to lay into it because it's such a counterintuitive claim. If God isn't good, then I don't know what God William Lane Craig is talking about, right? Is this even a Christian perspective anymore?
Again, it's gonna focus on the idea that if there's value and that people have values, then that has to come from God. It's not going to be like, actually the T-Rexes got soul building.
Yeah. No, I know. It just, the thing is that even that wouldn't necessarily fix it, because what that does is it says, well, in order for there to be badness, you would need God. So there's some modest prediction of this, right? But it's not the case at all that we would expect. It's called apologism for a reason, right? There's all these extremely counterintuitive things to the Christian narrative that exist in the world. And Craig is an apologist. He's up here explaining why you should not believe your intuitions. And then he's like, but actually smugly, I hope you realize you've fallen into my trap anyways. It's a wild swing.
Well, hold on. We talk about ideas, though. You don't have to call him crazy for giving what he thinks.
I think that was a wild swing. I think that's
It is bold.
I think that's not. I mean, if all he does is what Curt says, then it's not a very good argument, because it's going to fail to the evidential problem of evil very, very sharply.
Why do I say that? Well, the reason is because if naturalism were true, then it is incomprehensibly more probable that there wouldn't even be life, much less sentient life.
Right.
Bang.
Wait, your argument was that there's no grounding for
You'd say,
truth.
why is there nothing rather than something, and how did the
Oh,
universe
yeah.
begin?
You said that.
So what would y'all, do you have any commentary on this portion? This was a pretty big claim as well.
Again, it's just bizarre to me. The argument is terrible, and he's taken very seriously and has a PhD in philosophy. So this is why credentialism is just bizarre to me.
Well, I don't know. What are the numbers on the probability of there being something rather than nothing?
It's 100% posterior probability that there is something. There is no
How so?
Posterior probability that doesn't include there being something.
Well, think, and also just think about it for a second. How do you know there could even be nothing?
Because, well, I believe that the universe had a beginning, so.
But how do you know there could be nothing?
That's your vibe.
I wasn't asking what you believe. I was asking, how do you know there could be nothing? I'm asking about where are you getting
Oh, right, in terms of this, right.
Possibility that
could there
nothing
be
could be.
Nothing? Well, why is there? Well, wouldn't it default to nothing rather than something? It would default to nothing.
How do you motivate that?
Well, hang on. Do you think there could be something that arises from nothing?
No, then it would just be something.
Is God nothing?
God lives in a higher realm.
He's alive?
Yeah. He lives in a higher realm.
He does metabolism and can reproduce?
No, he lives in a higher realm.
Our definition of life is metabolism, reproduction, that's
right. And these are not things that apply to God.
Yeah, so God's not alive. That's the thing about words. They mean things, and if the thing doesn't have those things, then it's not those things.
He is a living God in the spiritual realm.
No, he's not alive. He doesn't reproduce, and he doesn't grow, and he doesn't metabolize.
Okay, well, you know where I get my understandings of the qualities and descriptions of God. And it calls him a living God.
Okay, well, do you think he grows, metabolizes, and reproduces?
No, but when he was instantiated
then he's not alive,
as Jesus,
because that's the definition.
When he was
Jesus
here
didn't
as
reproduce.
Jesus, he had a metabolism and such, but as he lives in the spiritual realm, why must he be bound to the same?
I'm not talking about binding. I'm talking about what words mean.
Well, okay. So my assertion is that living, quote unquote, living in a higher spiritual realm is a different type of existence than
well, then I'll just say the sun is
physical
alive.
realm.
Is the sun alive?
No.
But it's a higher spiritual kind of life. It's not the kind of life that we describe as life. The sun is alive, but it's not alive the way we're alive, right?
No, it's not in a higher realm.
So the sun and all the stars are alive because I have made the word living mean that the sun is living, right? That's what you're doing.
It's worth noting that this is a pretty far digression from the fundamental point of like, why would we believe that there would be nothing?
Right.
Which is much more on topic for the video. I'm just going to point out.
That's
rather
true.
than the
So
definition.
why would you
because
think
I don't
that's
think any of us think there could be nothing. I'd like to know your reasoning behind, because you said no, because nothing would just be something if there was something, and we have something. So it sounds like you think that.
No, I said it would be something if the something came from nothing. Well, I also don't believe that that happens in our reality,
So
except
you
for
don't
the
think it's possible
instantiation
for
of the universe.
You don't think it's possible for something to come from nothing?
Not in our physical reality, except for the instantiation of it at time zero.
But you also don't think there's ever been nothing, because you think there's always been a God.
Real fast.
Something.
So which position do you think atheists would most likely hold then, if that's the line of reasoning that you're coming to?
Would hold in, or would respond to me with? What would an atheist respond to me?
Most atheists think something could come from nothing, or do you think most atheists think something just continues being something?
I think atheists believe that every effect has a cause, or cause and effect chain. No, things don't pop out of
That's
nothing.
not a part of atheism.
Yeah.
Okay, why don't you tell me?
Okay.
Well, most atheists think something arises from something, and they are either going to claim a brute fact, infinite regress, or necessary being. Most of them aren't going to claim something from nothing.
Okay.
There's no commitment under atheism for either position, right? So you're just going to have to accept that anyone can do whatever they want here.
You're like,
I'm all great.
So maybe if the universe was like entirely illogical, not that it abides by like classical logic or anything, but by illogical, I mean if it was in a way that we could do rational thought, maybe something could come from nothing. I would expect a lot more chaos though in something like that, you know?
Yeah, we haven't observed stuff coming from nothing.
Well,
maybe it could only happen once, but I think if it could happen once, it could probably happen more, right?
I mean, if we're going to permit observation, then like an inductive argument would argue there could never be nothing, because we've never observed it.
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't think there's ever been anything but something. There's always been a thing or many things. Okay. And that's what most atheists think, right? And that's why I said they usually ground it in brute fact, infinite regress, or necessary being, right? A lot of the neuro ones will say infinite regress because that sounds good, and then the atheists that have been in them for a while and have done more reading will usually claim brute fact or infinite or necessary being. I mean,
presuppositions of all kinds.
It's not presuppositions. It's just the state of the stuff.
Cool.
Like a presupposition would be like not accepting evolution and claiming that the Earth is young, because that would be holding that claim while rejecting the other evidence, right? And so something like that might be a presupposition, right? Because you're going to have to presuppose that stuff is wrong, and probably a lot more with that, you know? But like with this stuff, they are generally just doing like logic and looking at the empirical data. It's usually not that deep, right? I mean, it's a deep question, but like the way they get there is not that deep. There's only a handful of things that people usually do to arrive there, right?
Yeah, I haven't studied the arguments for why there's something rather than nothing, or the probability that there would be something rather than nothing. So I guess he's going to say something about it.
Yeah, let's see where this goes. I'm interested.
Could experience suffering. And of course, we're back here to the old fine-tuning argument, aren't we? That given the fine-tuning of the universe, this is vastly more probable given theism than given naturalism. And so, in a sense, The existence of animal suffering as well as human suffering is actually evidence for theism, because if naturalism were true, it's overwhelmingly more probable there wouldn't be any sentient life and hence no suffering.
Yes.
Oh
It's
wow,
such
he
trash.
just made two massive claims, right? So he claimed that
trash argument.
there's no sentient life under naturalism, and then he also claimed something before that was pretty big. Did you guys catch that?
I didn't hear the before thing.
I mean, he's just going through his sequence of 6 arguments and claiming that because they established that the universe is the way that it is, his
the
position is
teleological.
correct.
Yeah.
He did fine tuning, but
Yeah.
Yeah, and
That's
I
wild.
wouldn't be surprised if he brings up the moral argument next.
Well, what's
yeah.
wrong with
Well, remember
fine-tuning?
he had mentioned the 6 arguments, so he's probably going through all 6 of them right now, right? And he's building a cumulative case for why theism is more probable, right?
Yeah.
Because this
That's
is
what
a
he normally
cumulative
does.
case, and so he's responding to Alex's objections, cumulative case style, one by one. And I feel like Alex is providing some pretty good input against them. I just don't know if he's accepting it or not, you know. And it's hard to change. Like, could you imagine how? I don't know what age he is, but imagine doing this for 40 years. If you get an objection and you've heard them all and you've addressed them all, even if you're addressing them fallaciously, you've addressed them all. I mean, I would think at that point they may go right past you unless you have like a personal relationship where they're actually willing to listen to you closely, you know? I mean, some people will listen, but at a certain point, I've noticed people just get set in their ways, you know, and stuff just like rolls past them.
I understand this line of argument.
Pardon me?
I understand this line of argument. I understand what you're getting at. The issue is I feel like it kind of sidesteps the concern.
It sidesteps.
It sidesteps the concern.
Yes, it does.
Because
It's
there are
an
many
end
people. There are many people who believe,
Proudly,
for
he
example,
says,
that there is some kind of naturalistic explanation for fine-tuning, even if we don't know what it is. There are people here who disagree with you.
Honestly, I think fine-tuning is a presupposition.
Isn't
I don't
it an
think we know
observation
enough.
too? Isn't it an observation?
No. From my understanding, the science shows that there's different areas where of the universe where like a certain thing could be slightly or to more off and it wouldn't impact it that much, or it would just impact the way that like atoms form or whatever like that. And so you would still have universes, right? And fine-tuning is generally going to be like intelligent life would form in them, but you don't know what the probability of the intelligent life forming in a universe with bigger atoms or different chemistry or whatever, right?
Right.
It's a massive exercise in question begging.
Because
there is no established fact that the constants could be any different than they are.
Right.
That is not in evidence.
Let's say gravity is like 10% different, and that's not one of the things that if it changes, it's going to like destroy everything, right? Let's say it's like 10% off and it's stable, right? And I don't know what that's actually going to do, but let's say the lower gravity makes the atoms slightly bigger because they're held together less, right? And then all of a sudden you get new chemistry or something, right? Who knows what's going to happen there, right?
Well, and they want this fine tuning to be for a specific kind of vertebrate life in a specific location. And again, that's like not the case. First of all, like the idea of fine tuning itself is question begging. It's an improperly formed question. The question should be, are the constants variable and is there evidence that they can be different than they are? There's no evidence for that. We don't know one way or the other about that. But like even giving it the idea that maybe there is some variability of the constants, right? There's like no demonstration at all, on my view, that the tuning, if it exists, is for anything other than very simple energy flow through like persistent material forms that are capable of variably heritable persistence of metabolism. That's the only thing that there could be any fine tuning for. And if that's the case, it seems very, very unlikely that in a universe with 2 trillion galaxies, there wouldn't be at least one event in which some sort of persisting structure that was allowed metabolism with variable heritability and energy flow would exist. That seems highly likely in a universe with 2 trillion galaxies.
Where the aliens at,
And
Curt?
real
Where
fast,
they at, bro?
Cottonbox says it's kind of just saying if things were different, then they'd be different. No, it's saying that things very well could be different. Nobody knows what any of those probabilities are, and we have this one universe that we have access to. So there's no way to calculate fine-tuning. It's presupposing fine-tuning. Maybe this was the only way it could resolve necessarily, just because this, and it's only going to resolve like this infinitely, or maybe like that. Like there's a bunch of different options, right? And so it's not just if things were different, then they'd be different. It's no, this is actually probably not it. Also, Majestic P-Back sent 5 jewels. Thank you very much. I see the dog treat. Greatly appreciated.
I mean, Kieran, Dave, I'm interested because you probably know this better than I do. Is there any physical fact that suggests that the constants are variable?
I mean, there's no. It's not clear that the constants are real, right? I mean, there are.
Right.
Yeah, it's sort of the thing. Sure. Well, what I want to point out is that I don't know why theists want to accuse folks of fine tuning when they have a pretty specific challenge. The argument of fine tuning, strictly speaking, is universe expected under theism, universe not expected under non-theistic conditions. And so the argument put forth is that, well, there's all these little things we see that seem very well tuned for life. There are a bunch of really big challenges to that proposition just out of the gate. The first one being, well, why is God finely tuned for this life? Why is it the case that God wants this? Why is it?
Yeah, you have to be a divine psychologist first.
Well, I mean, the thing is that there could be like, it doesn't know, you don't know if like there's psychology or necessity or whatever, right? Like maybe we should all be necessitarians regardless of our metaphysics, because this is all absolutely necessary, and you know, causality is a bit of a myth, free will is a myth, all these things, sure. But there's a problem there, is that if you're going to sit here and gesture towards atheists and say, well, why is anything like it is? And then theists have exactly the same question hovering over their head, except with one extra entity, which really has no explanatory power except to own the decisions of it. Well, then I don't really see how this argument doesn't cut both ways. And so whenever I hear fine-tuning these days, I don't get very motivated by it, because like I don't really even feel the need to like engage with the probability, which very hard to do. Don't really feel the need to engage with like the physics of it. And you know, it should we believe that the constants could be different? I don't know. They have been. I don't know why we call them constants just for historical reasons.
And right? even if you grant the entire argument, even if you grant that there is some sort of fine tuning and that the universe as it is currently structured is so statistically unusual that it suggests that God was behind the construction of the universe, that gets you nowhere to suggesting that we are involved in that fine tuning. Because it is entirely reasonable to imagine that the fine tuning may be for some other feature of the universe that has nothing to do with us, and we are an accidental byproduct. It's like arguing that a car is fine tuned for the rust that forms on the underside of the wheel well. We are like 0.0000 with like 20 more zeros, 1% of just like our planet, much less the whole 2 trillion galaxy universe.
Okay.
That's a wonderful, at least the anthropic principle is a wonderful point, Hayden. The anthropic principle is simply saying that we are the universe looking back upon itself. And I think what he's saying with the first part of that, in that Christians refuse to engage with the anthropic principle because it destroys I guess the whole thing, because it destroys their reasoning. I think what he's saying is that we are the universe looking back upon itself instead of being some specially created thing is damaging to their position. Although maybe I'm mistaken, but I'm trying to infer.
I mean,
from
I
the
think of the anthropic principle as stating that we have a 100% chance of a universe that could create us because we exist.
Yeah, it has to be that way, right? It's conditioned. The probability of us existing is conditional.
Is 100%.
Conjunction. Yeah.
So
All
any speculation about like alternatives is necessarily like going to be motivated by some fact other than like the nature of the actual facts. Like for example, people will like say 10 to minus 67 is the chances of the like conditions and being life permitting or whatever. But each individual human being prior to their birth or like prior to their conception anyway, like the chances of that individual human being, given how meiosis and sperm production and fertilization works, is like 1 in 10 to the negative 300. But on the other hand, the chance of people having a lot of sex and having babies is really high. So it's just a question of something's got to happen. And this is the thing that actually happened. And then because that thing was a priori quite improbable, does not make it a posteriori quite improbable.
Oh, man. It did it.
Strong, at least to the point where they remain agnostic about the existence of a God, such that the only data that they can really touch and feel that really sort of strikes them as the most sort of important and plausible is the existence of animal suffering. So I suppose I could frame it this way. Suppose it were the case that all else were equal.
That what?
That all else were equal. That otherwise, apart from this piece of data. Apart from this piece of data.
But why should we make such a hypothesis that all else were equal when it's not?
So that we can isolate this particular point of data and see if it at the very least decreases the probability of God's existence.
So you're saying, what if animal suffering were just as probable on naturalism as on theism? Then what?
I'm saying let's grant the existence of animal suffering and say, given that fact about the universe, like, okay, let's grant that there is a universe that exists. Let's grant that there's a universe that exists that abides by physical laws. Now, if you want to say that we can't have the conversation about why animals would be allowed to suffer until we've addressed the fine-tuning argument, then we'll probably need a bit more time. But also, I don't think that that functions for people who simply are willing to say, well, I just don't agree with the fine-tuning argument. I still want to know why it is that God would allow.
I'm ready to keep going.
Keep going.
If that's to be more than just an opinion or psychological autobiographical comment, they need to give some good arguments against the fine-tuning argument. And my impression from reading the literature is that today this fine-tuning argument is the argument for the existence of God that is taken most seriously by non-theists.
Can you take that Alex is just looking at the systemic problem of evil, the problem of evil against theism from evolution by natural selection, ignoring the others? Does that argument itself count against it?
Alex, because I did say I think we can speculate about God's reasons for allowing an evolutionary history to the world.
Did you hear what he said there?
Yeah, he's speculating.
It's kind of wild.
He's like, well,
we can guess.
Yeah. The best part is I love it's the premier argument. And like Alex is like, well, what about the people who don't think that? He's like, well, they would have to come to me and convince me. Otherwise, as far as I can tell, it's the best one. You're just like, come on, dude. Come on. That's not going to work. Do you think that's going to work?
Well, that's what I was saying earlier. No shade against William Craig, but I do feel like he is just in one ear and out the other with a lot of the objections that Alex is giving, right? And I don't think he's being dismissive with it. I think he's just like hearing it and then moving on to his next point. And I don't think that's beneficial for anybody because Alex has made some strong points here. In fact, you guys have had very substantive discussion around some of the points that he's made, right? And as well as William Craig, right? And so I think that maybe he needs to be a little bit more, maybe I think he's just in his ways, but if he could be a little bit more intellectually honest in a conversation like this when it comes to actually addressing points rather than just pushing them away, I would be really appreciative of that. I'd like to see more apologists actually take in points and be like, you're right, my argument is not great. I won't use that again. Because I don't think I've ever seen an apologist say, all right, you're right, my argument is not good. I'm not going to use that again. I saw Jim Bob change his argument, but he never told me that I was right about it being unsound, right? Or being kind of at least weirdly phrased to where it looks like it'd be unsound, right? To like literally anybody looking at it, if depending on, I don't think his arguments are sound, but
yeah, it's hard to do. You have to admit defeat, take an ego hit, and it's really hard for people to do that.
You know? Yeah. I don't know. I'd like to see that type of intellectual honesty. I'm not saying he's being dishonest or anything. I'm just saying like it's and some of it might happen unconsciously too with people, right? Where they're just looking at the world through rose-tinted glasses, and so the way that they interpret information is going to be differently than the person looking through the world without rose-tinted glasses, you know. All right, yeah, let's get back.
Yeah, I hope he engages with it in some way.
Because honestly, he's been doing the 6 arguments, and Alex has been dropping down argument after argument, and he just keeps circling back to his original thing he said. Or I don't feel like they were getting very far with any of it, even though Alex has given them great responses.
All right.
It seems to me that God's overall purpose for creating life on earth is for the purpose of human salvation, and that his goal is to create a world in which the optimal number of people would freely come to know and embrace eternal salvation, which is an incommensurable good to which the suffering in this world cannot even be compared. And I don't think it is at all improbable, not in a whit improbable, that only in a world suffused with natural and moral evil, that the optimal number of people would freely come to.
I just realized I missed a question when Kelly was here earlier during one of the songs. I want to point that out real fast. I think Kelly did go to bed, and I'll have to talk to her tomorrow. But I think I might have missed that during one of the songs when everybody was throwing in those. Christianity is based on the premise that humans are more than apes. So how does animal suffering benefit from theism? That's it. Did we address that? I think we addressed that in the discussion, but did we address her point specifically?
How does it benefit from theism?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it does.
Kelly, if you're here, I'm sorry I missed that. My apologies. There were a bunch of super chats that all came in at once. I'm so sorry about that if we missed that there. I just want to make sure we got to that. So yeah, I don't think animal suffering benefits theism at all, right? But I don't know why William Lane Craig would think that. He kind of said it.
Well, I think he was most recently
and whatnot, but I don't think he really supported it well.
He was most recently given the argument that it's the argument for the greater good that would be done if all this crap happens is far greater than the bad stuff that happens. Isn't that what he was saying?
Well, he said several different things, but yeah. And then she said Christianity is based on the premise that humans are more than apes. That is true. I think Zill brought that up earlier, and Yeah.
Yes, I believe that.
I'm really confused about Willie's attack here because, you know, we're saying, hey, it seems like a problem that animals suffer terribly. And he's like, well, you have to understand the entire world is optimized around human salvation. And I don't know about, I don't know about you, but like, couldn't we just say, like, couldn't God have done all of the human salvation without the animal suffering? Like, if the only suffering that animals really experienced was human inflicted, then I could sort of see this argument. But no, the vast majority of animal suffering never interacts with humans or interacts with them only in an extremely indirect way. So what is this?
Well,
what is this defense doing?
Aren't there some Christians who would argue that animals might be in heaven too? Because isn't there even stuff in the Bible that talks about animals in heaven?
If that's the case, then the like soteriology and celestial like demographic problem that I brought up earlier is even more disastrous.
What, like heaven doesn't have enough room for him, you mean?
No.
Is that what you mean?
It's that the plan of salvation literally had no effect. It's the tiniest rounding error on what actually gets saved.
Oh, and that makes it okay. And you think that makes it a silly plan? Well,
had literally no effect, may be silly, or may just be someone's like pet project. It's your judgment call based on your aesthetics.
Okay, well, what if animals are in heaven and you know the second life we're promised, and then we're back with perfection, which it was in the Garden of Eden. This is the great redemption
Christian
story.
soteriology, what would need to happen for that to be the case? Because what is not assumed is not repaired, right? So what would need to happen in that case would be that there would have needed to be an incarnation into every animal form.
No, well, I think the argument is humans have souls and everything's around us, right?
Well, are you arguing that everything has a soul, or are you arguing that everything does not have a soul, but it still gets soteriology?
No, I don't think we're called to witness to animals. No. So I don't know how that works, but I believe that creation was not violent in the Garden of Eden, and then it won't be in the second life either.
Why did lions have giant canine teeth?
I don't know.
Yeah, you just have a lot of that tonight, so that's good.
Yeah, that's good.
Wait a minute.
It's good to know when you.
Oh man.
Okay, but I do want to like gloat a little bit that I absolutely called what he was going to say.
You did. You pay no attention. So that was actually genuinely funny.
I feel like I'm seeing a lot of the same lines of logic being skipped that I was with the Andrew Wilson debate and Candace Owens debate with William and Craig.
It's very similar.
Not in like a bad way, just like, I mean, it is not great, but like the way that he arrives at his conclusion seems to be missing a few steps in different areas, in my opinion. And when he's explaining his position to Alex, Alex is pointing this to him, and then he's just going to the next thing. And it's, I don't know, I find it kind of frustrating engaging with people like that engage like that, to be honest with you. I don't know about you guys, but that is a headache to me when you got to go through 6 arguments like this. Like, who brings a cumulative case? I mean, like I said, sure, they're good sometimes, whatever. Let's grant that. Who brings a 6-argument cumulative case argument to a 40-minute debate?
William Lane Craig.
Or an hour-long debate. That's like one of those is a debate prompt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Someone who does not want to talk about animal suffering. That's my guess.
That's funny.
Written books about it, so.
Oh yeah.
Not with Alex in the room though.
Obviously not very good ones.
Mod brought up in the chat that there are animals with big old teeth that don't eat meat.
Yeah, there are musk deer that have giant canines, but their entire mouth structure is primarily for herbivory, just like fruit bats, hippos, panda bears, and gorillas. And the gorillas have sexually dimorphic canines, so that the females don't have them. So yeah, there definitely are cases where there's sexual dimorphism, or there's some sort of like display value, like a peacock tail or something. But lions have them because that's how they live.
All right.
All right, let's get into this.
Yeah.
Embrace God and his salvation, and so find eternal life. And that could well be the reason for creating the world with an evolutionary history that involved, as you say, a lot of animal suffering.
So the suggestion would be that an animal like a zebra, which gets its windpipe caught in the jaws of a lion, how they're often predated upon, that no human ever sees, that no human's ever aware of, that no other animal is even ever aware of, is somehow necessary. The conditions under which that occurred are somehow necessary to bring people to salvation in Christ.
You know, this is the interesting thing about the natural world. The tiniest perturbations can, over time, have a kind of ripple effect such that enormous consequences can follow from seemingly trivial incidents, like a zebra's having its trachea which collapsed. This is.
Wait a minute, he's an American.
To the club.
Next, he's going to say that a position doesn't move him a centimeter.
In chaos theory, and in
chaos
quantum theory as well. So that I think we're in no position at all to say, when we see some instance of evil, that God probably doesn't have a good reason for permitting that to occur.
Am I expected to believe that God is somehow bound by this precarious butterfly effect from a particular instantiation of animal suffering that somehow brings about salvation, that without which God could have found no way to bring about the same salvation? It seems extremely.
Well, we don't know. I mean, see, this is again where we're.
That's pretty much the same answer that Zill was giving. He was just saying, I don't know on a lot of stuff. And that seems like a lot of the people that I've seen have this conversation where it ends up saying, like, I don't know on a bunch of stuff to where it's an indecisive answer. Most theists, I don't think, want to make a decisive answer on this.
This is a weakness that's pretty profound because it's basically skeptical theism, right? You're saying we don't know enough to comment on God's motivations. But what that means is then we don't know enough to comment on the moral valence of God's motivations.
Right. It goes further too. There's like the Klim and Haga argument, right? Like if you don't know what the fundamental pillar of your metaphysics says, then you can't, like, it could literally be the case that the stars arrange themselves in the sky to say, yo, I'm God, and by the way, I'm real, peace out, yo. And that would not be evidence for God. Because you don't know anything. You can't make, William Craig is saying, well, we can speculate, but by the way, never speculate. And the skeptical theism position puts him in this place where, like, what do you do? How can he make any predictions? How can he say the earth is finely tuned? He doesn't know. He just passed his opportunity.
He doesn't know for what it's finely tuned.
Well, he says it's for humans, right?
Yeah, but that's like someone saying, like, I'm going to write a book about the ideal society, and then I'm going to pick philosophers to be the kings. Like, it's literally like Plato.
And if he does that, right, again, like, but he's saying he doesn't know why God would do any of these things, and that it's fundamentally just not a thing he's willing to speculate on. But then that means that, like, either.
No, well, he said the greater good. Remember, he mentioned that, the idea of
Well,
there would
that's
be a greater good than there would be
Again,
evil
but
that
he
happens.
doesn't know how that works, which means he can't even establish a moral valence for it. He
this would
can't
be a
establish it for the
motivation.
greater good. It
No,
could be
this
for
would be
the
a
greater evil if he doesn't know the argument.
No, I think his argument was that God would know that a greater good would come out of all of this.
Okay.
You're just asserting the consequent. You're just saying,
well,
if there's a good God, he would do this. Therefore, it's possible there's a good God. But have you read Stephen Law's argument on the evil God?
Nope.
Well, let me just point out one inconsistency here, though, Zil. This is more about William Lane Craig than about the existence of God, okay? Craig has been running fine-tuning. He's the fine-tuning guy. Yeah. I would not doubt that like his underwear waistband is custom printed fine-tuning, right? He's that kind of guy. But here he is saying, actually, you know what? If you were to ask me the probability of any given action for God, I don't want to talk about the problem of animal evil because we can't know and it's impossible to say. And I'm sure it will all work out, right? That's a really big problem. Why is it that Craig feels confident understanding the nature of the universe via God at the macro scales and the micro scales, but specifically unable to speculate at this specific scale? While you can, there are people who make coherent arguments here. Craig is being incoherent. He is not actually holding true to his position that you can predict the universe that God, like that you would expect.
I think it's selective hearing, Karen Dave.
Yeah. It's very, very, he's willing to do it in one place and not another. Well, and why? Greater good, man. I don't know.
Wait, are the parts where he doesn't answer, are those about divine psychology type things?
Well, he just, God knowing a greater good surely must also be divine psychology, right?
Yeah, I put a link to the Evil God article in the back chat, so.
Oh, okay, thanks.
I think this is a blunder.
Okay. Okay, let's see.
Here for the evening, I'll do a quick recap. I do still need to play a song for Kelly. Kelly earlier in the stream submitted a $10 super chat. I was just trying to space them out some throughout the stream, so it's not all at once, and we can have conversations and stuff. But Karen, Dave, I appreciate you so much for hanging out today. I appreciate you all greatly. This was a spectacular stream. We had some great conversations. I might actually clip out that Zilzone discussion and the different parts and turn it into one. But with that being said, so tonight we had some interesting conversations and watched some interesting responses in this debate. So we covered A and B theory of time a good bit. We covered God's future knowledge, as well as can God know the previous knowledge and infinite past. We covered mode versus content, animal suffering, fine-tuning. We talked about zebras and skeptical theism, and we saw a pretty but what should I say, a pretty bad response there that landed William Lane Craig as almost like a skeptical theist, right? Yeah, that was definitely an interesting debate so far. Tomorrow should be the last portion of it. We need to power through that, though. We've got like 40 minutes or an hour left or something. Let me double check. We got a good bit left. So tomorrow, I want you guys to... No, we got 47 minutes left. All right, we should be able to get that tomorrow. We only did like 30 minutes. Not even 30 minutes today, though. So we're going to have to go double pace tomorrow. But I had a lot of fun reviewing this with everybody. We had Curt, we had Karen, Dave, Jaziel, Zilzone. Who else was up there? Oh, I'm blanking already. Anyways, sorry guys. I tried. I know I missed somebody there. If I missed you, I'm sorry. I tried to get everybody, but I'm blanking right now. Being up here talking in front of everybody, I'm nervous. What can I say? But I greatly appreciate you all. Doom-based, Missing Mod, Professor Hizzle, good having all y'all, Dave Gar, Zil. Yeah, it's excellent having all y'all here. Thank you so much for all the support, everybody. I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and we will see you tomorrow. Or today, technically. Oh, what have I been saying? You guys are all the best bosses in the world. Thank you so much. I forgot to say that yesterday, I think. You guys are awesome.